Hello and welcome to episode 33 of the Pop Shock podcast.
Year of our Lord.
Year of our Lord podcast, episode 33. Brothers and sisters, welcome to this religious podcast about pop culture.
Amen.
we pray to our gods. We pray to our gods, Kevin Feige and Stan Lee, every week.
Side of the cross.
Aye, in the name of the Stan Lee and the Todd McFarlane and the
Foggy
and the Frank Valerie men. that's
a weird ass.
Let's just blaspheme as soon as we got on the podcast. Today we have. Well, I'm Dan. I'm here every week, and I'm joined by other two blasphemers, Jerd Noise and Chris Jameson. What's happening?
Hi, it's Dan.
Hey, you knew.
So, I'm still recovering for this bloody cold, man.
So a weekly update is life like a gem yet?
No.
Fucking sucks. Well, this podcast will be a gem, so it's fine.
The good thing is Scotland won yesterday.
Yeah, Scotland beat England in the rugby.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's something. We might be shit at football, but at least we're all right at rugby.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't really follow it that much, but I'm always have that. But there was this I remember there was from the outside of not having any care of sports, there was a period where Ireland were doing great, and then I remember hearing someone, they're shite. I was like, oh, they not be winning everything for the last 10 years. They're shite now. All right. And then they're
only lost one game.
I think there was a period of about a year or two when they weren't I don't follow it, but I just vaguely remember they're always winning shit and then they're shite. I was like, that's a big jump. I don't know.
It's a dramatic shift.
It might be whatever. I guess I don't know. It's I also found it an interesting game though. The little someone does a tap on the ankle, your ankle's fucking fine.
I have some good compilations on YouTube. But we're actually listening for new fans, for anybody that's started listening to this podcast in the last couple of weeks. You've probably never seen us do news, but see before we used to do we used to go through, I feel pop culture pieces of news that we wanted to talk about. So we're going to do that again this week because there's been some shit happening. January's out the road, so there's stuff being announced again. Yeah, so we're going to plan for the days. We're going to talk some news. We're going to do what we've been watching, listening to, playing, and then we're going to go into the whole James Gunn new DC shake-up slate that was announced on literally the last day of January, because Gunn was like, it's getting announced in January, and then they literally left it until the last day. It was all right, no bother, Jim, cheers. But hey, listen,
it was an hatred
of James Gunn already.
There's no joy.
Cheers, last day of January.
We'll get into all of it. What's a comic book fan demanding? Don't be silly. Comic book fans aren't demanding at all. That's not like us. Yeah, but first of all,
your comic book fan is a what you call it, a cover for your just blatant hatred.
First of all, I want to talk about something that we've not put in the chat because I just remembered that Jerd sent it the other day, and it was that the Criminal Ed Brubaker comic is getting adapted into a live-action TV show. Is that right, Jerd?
Because you've only brought this up now since we're recording, I vaguely remember looking at it. I usually just see headlines and send.
Right, so what I'm going to do is Google it really quick, and we're going to... So Amazon Studios apparently have purchased the rights to develop Criminal into a TV series.
I haven't read... I've read 2 chapters, and they were slightly connected.
I think I've read... I might say, how many... There's 7 or 8, isn't there? I think I've read 5 or 6.
So, is it... I'm always thinking, is it Bumble? Do you know that's the dating site? Humble, the charity thing. So I'll see what I have. I think I could have everything Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips done together that isn't Marvel.
Hold on,
I got it for €45.
I can't spot them. Where are they? They're on my shelf.
My tablet's full of them.
I don't know. They're up there somewhere.
I really have to back them up somewhere.
For me, Chapter 1 and Chapter 4, which I think is called Bad Night, those 2 comics alone are incredible. Every one of them's good. I think it goes Criminal, and then the second one is, I want to say Outlaw, or I don't know, Lawless. Yep. It was So it was Coward's incredible, then Lawless, which was decent, and then the third one is called oh god, I can't remember the name of the third one. And then the fourth one is Bad Night, and I think the fifth one is The Good, the Bad, and the Dead. I think it's called. And
I don't know. I'm looking at it.
That's
here,
what I've read up
it's
to, and they're
fucking
all
messy.
solid.
I think it starts with Coward. It's Criminal, Coward, Criminal,
Coward's
Lawless.
incredible.
Okay, then Criminal, The Dead and the Dying. Volume 4, Bad Night. Volume 5,
The Dead and the Dying. The Sinner. Yeah,
6,
that's right. Yeah.
The Last of Innocent. And then there's another.
Right. So
then there's a limited series called Criminal, and then it gets confusing, to be honest with you.
So I've read the first 5. I've read up to The Sinner, and it's probably my favourite comic run outside of DC and Marvel. Like, I'd say I prefer it to Sin City, and I really like Sin City.
Oh, Sin City.
So much scope in it.
I really like Criminal, especially Coward. The first time I was reading Coward, all I was thinking was, this should be a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like, that's what it felt like. I was reading the script to it. It felt like Reservoir Dogs, or I don't know. It just had that feel to it of these real lived-in characters in this slightly heightened world with incredible dialogue and kind of sporadic storytelling in the way it was told, and I was just like, this would be perfect for a Tarantino movie. It felt like 90s Tarantino. To me, that's why I love Coward so much. And then the rest of the series, although I do think Coward's probably the best, the rest of them are great. Like Lawless is great, Dead and the Dying, Bad Night, Sinners. They're the only ones I can speak for. So here's a full list of them here. It's Coward, Lawless, The Dead and the Dying, Bad Night, The Sinners, Last of the Innocent, Wrong Time, Wrong Place, My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, Bad Weekends, and Cruel Summer. So apparently that's the full list.
Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, is that?
Wow. This is according to comicbook.com. This is their list of all the criminal books, so I don't know.
I didn't realize that was a part of it. What was the last one he called? All My Heroes Are Dead, is
it? No, all my heroes have always been junkies. Bad Weekend and Cruel Summer is the name of the last 3, according to comicbook.com. But yeah, just absolutely. If you've not heard of them, absolutely worth a read. Ed Brubaker was one of my favourite writers before this because of what he did with Captain America, and then he came and he did this independently, and he's also done another one called, oh Christ, what's it called? It's kind of about Cthulhu. It's kind of H.P. Lovecrafty, but it's, oh god, what's it called? That's good as well. It's like Criminal, but it's more supernatural. It's kind of like Constantine a wee bit. It's kind of like John Constantine a wee bit. And it's also the team of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, who's the artist. Okay. They did it together. They did another one. God, they've done a few. Hold on, I'll see if I can get the list up here. So the Fade Out, Killer Be Killed. I've not read either of those, but they're both Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker. Fatale, that's the one I'm thinking of. That's kind of
oh yeah,
that's really good. I've only read the first volume of that, but it's really good. And then is it Sleeper? Is Sleeper the name of the other one I want to say? I can't here, but I think it's called Sleeper. But yeah, point is, Brubaker's a great writer when he teams up with
Killer Be Killed.
I know that's them again, but I've not read that one. That's a newer one.
Yeah,
I've only read Criminal, Fatale, and I think
Reckless. Yeah, that's the latest one, I think.
But yeah,
they're probably firing them out too. They're bringing out a fucking graphic novel. It's funny that every year or so. But All My Heroes Are Junkies. I don't think Criminal is on the front cover. It's just when you skip through the page, it goes a criminal novella.
Right. Cool.
But yeah, it's interesting that they just do basically feature films every once or twice a year. And I really just need to get into them because I think that's when I was doing the reviews for BGC Comic Con. I was reviewing, and I hadn't really read much Brubaker stuff. I was aware of the Captain America,
right?
But I hadn't read much of it. And then what was it? Jacob Phillips is Sean Phillips' son, so he's the artist on that Texas Blood. And even just skimming through there, I know he did some coloring for them for his dad's books, Jacob. Right. But you can kind of see this, if you're looking for something of a similar vibe, I'd say that Texas Blood is well worth checking out.
Is it going to be an animated film like Invincible?
No, it's going to
be. It's all just crooks and stuff. There's no need for it.
And Amazon, I know they get a bit of slagging for that Lord of the Rings show they did, but they're making moves. I mean, they've also got the rights to the God of War series. They're doing a God of War adaptation.
Oh yeah.
And now they're also doing this. So they're making some moves, man. They're getting some rights under their belt, and they're obviously planning some shit.
Money,
so,
man. Like,
yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
Like, look, if they can pull out The Boys and kind of elevate it more than what it is in the comics, now that's entirely dependent on
the team, the creative team.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's exciting.
But like, they've got all the money. Like, it's weird how like Prime nearly has a better maybe reputation, even though it's still Amazon, and everyone knows Amazon's like a fucking horrible company.
Who's doing just something else that's happened since we last spoke? Phoebe Waller-Bridge is writing a Tomb Raider show.
Indiana
Tomb Raider, yeah.
Oh yeah,
is that Amazon?
One of the writers.
That's Amazon.
Well. So there you go. That's also Amazon. So God of War.
They also have like the James Bond rights, but I don't. Or is there such a thing? I know Bond doesn't really want any.
MGM did. Hold on. MGM did sell them to somebody, but was it? I think it was Amazon, wasn't it?
I think it was Amazon. Was it no Disney and Amazon? Like we're in the kind of thing. And
Amazon bought MGM. That's what happened. Amazon bought MGM for $8.5 billion in March of last year. So yeah, Amazon now own James Bond. Exactly. Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
But yeah,
Amazon own everything.
I do feel like maybe not so much with Criminal, but with both with Tomb Raider and God of War, I feel like following The Last of Us on HBO, I think they've got quite a lot to live up to. Like more so than they would have otherwise. I feel like The Last of Us has really set a new bar, and I think if anything is below that standard, I feel like it's going to get way more slagging than it would have otherwise. Like, even if a Tomb Raider show is just all right, it'll be like, oh, it's decent, but it's not as good as Last of Us. Whereas if it was even decent before, people would be like, oh, this is a good adaptation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think The Last of Us make it a bit harder for them to get an audience, maybe get support. But
to the same degree, there's plenty of people who don't read books, and they judge fucking Game of Thrones based on the show itself. So I don't think it really like.
And I also feel like the bar should be raised. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think the bar, Last of Us raising the bar for what is great adaptations is only a good thing. I don't see it as a negative. I think companies and creators should raise the bar for what is, what makes it great.
But it's shown. I'm kind of come back into we'll be talking about the James Gunn stuff later. It's kind of shown that Last of Us is for like an adaptation. It recreate things is like very heavily. Like some scenes are feel the exact same.
Yeah.
But then takes opportunities to do pieces with other characters that can be a bit different. So like that's like I guess comic book stuff wouldn't really work to that degree because you're not going to be going creating characters, but you can just kind of tell whatever with certain characters. But there's certainly an element of having enough respect for the source material to actually just like it was done well enough. You don't need to try and recreate the wheel here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think with game stuff, it still seems kind of antiquated to me to be like, oh, well, game adaptations don't work. Like anything can work. It's just the track record of maybe. I think the studios don't see that like if something doesn't make money, they're not going to invest in it again.
Proofs in the pudding, isn't it? That's that.
It's still a fucking like Tomb Raider, still an adventure story. Fucking things still like just I don't know. It's kind of weird how the market I guess decides on things that that's
totally
like I get where it seems very basic to just be like, oh, this is a computer game thing, so that, but
totally.
It's one of those things. It's the IP is there. Like the IP's already been there. The Tomb Raider story's been played out in the games all the time, so they've got the core material there. They just need to make a kind of good adaptation.
Well, I mean, what I would say that though is that like that's where I think the addition of Phoebe Waller-Bridge is good because I feel like they had. I agree with what you're saying, Chris, but they had that last time, and the Leech of a Cannon one was okay. But the good source material didn't result in a good movie. Like I still think you need somebody like Waller-Bridge or just some clever creative just to come in and make it like what they've done with Last of Us, just to put it up a notch. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it has an important part. Like
I think to a certain degree, like that's kind of like I think it's kind of the high art is like where say something like where The Last of Us where it comes in, like the source, the IP already was very strong, but they kind of just came in and did some extra things with it. I say like that Reacher show I was watching a couple of weeks ago. Like it's not there's nothing kind of completely reinventing the wheel there, but it's just done well. I don't think it's like some things are very positive because of that if they like add in different things. But like something like this, like I don't know, I think more an action show without any twists or whatever, or an action film without any twists, like they happen too. It's just doing it well. I don't know.
My thing is, I feel like Lara Croft, a lot of it is, and then these adventure things like Nathan Drake and stuff as well. My investment in the peril of what's happening depends on how well the character's written. Like, if the character's witty and relatable and likable, then I'll care whether they make that jump or not. Whereas Alicia Vikander's Tomb Raider, I'm no shade towards her. I like Alicia Vikander, whatever, she was great in Ex Machina.
Oh yeah, she was
but
great, wasn't it?
The way that character was written in that movie, I just didn't give a shit whether like she was going to make the jump over the spike pit or not. I was like, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. It was just like I'm not invested.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like The Last of Us with Pedro's performance, I'm already invested in what happens to Joel in that show, and I feel like that's earned both through the actor's performance and through the script. I don't know, and I think that's why I'm excited about Phoebe Waller-Bridge right now. I think.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
I still have like for like who did the Secret Santa, but no.
Do you think she'll be in it? Do you think she'll put a cameo in it, or do you think she's just going to be the strict?
Kind of strange because she's like potentially taking over for Indiana, so she probably wouldn't go for.
Yeah.
I doubt she wouldn't be Laura.
Yeah, to be fair, it's quite interesting though that that's a good point. She's in Indiana Jones and she's writing Tomb Raider, and they've always been inspired. Like so, yeah.
Unless they finish it there, they could make her the next Indiana. Like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm great for that because maybe. Well, obviously she's not playing Indiana Jones, but like she's playing an older character.
I wonder what would happen there, though, right?
Well,
I would assume if this is Amazon, they've probably locked her down for a few years. This is probably a contract, like.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
but I wonder what's going to happen. Like, see this indie movie comes out, right, and it does really well, and then at the end, it's confirmed that the next movie is going to be her. Can you imagine? In the next movie, she's doing it, and she's like, "This is decent, but it's not as good as the stuff that I wrote for Tomb Raider." Like if she gets the script for this and she's like, god damn it, I wish I was. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if that like conflict of interest. That's interesting.
Well, like she doesn't seem to be. She seems to do like kind of comes in and just like uses her talents, does a bit of writing. But I like say with Killing Eve, like when she only write like there's like say it was 4 seasons, she wrote the first 2.
Yeah.
With James Bond, she did a bit of the script. She kind of distanced herself from it afterwards. She kind of just did a
rewrite, a rework. Yeah.
She could, like, you never know. She could just be to develop it, and then they could bring it. Like that happens a lot. Other team of writers come in afterwards. She could, and like, I can't remember exactly about the phrasing of it, but I kind of had the feeling.
Am I right in saying she's
the creator?
She's Mark McDonagh's missus, right?
Yeah. I don't know if they're married.
Oh yes, they are. Yeah, they're married. Like 2018.
I don't know. I don't know what this would do to the relationship, but I'd love to see them working something together. I think if they collaborated, that could be fascinating, or it could be awful.
They haven't yet.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe they just met whatever outside.
Maybe they just
like Greta Gerwig and your man. They met through working together first, so and then I think they continue to work together afterwards. But yeah, like I guess they would. It'd be great to see them write something like together. That'd be, or even like, even just not her only acting in it, but like the two of them writing something.
Right. This next thing is more of a public service announcement than it is a news story. If you've got a PS5 and you've not claimed the games in the PlayStation Plus collection, do it now because they're taking it away. Yeah. After the 9th of May, you won't be able to claim. The Last of Us is in it. I think it's The Last of Us Remastered, Fallout 4, the first God of War 2018, a Final Fantasy game's in there.
One of the infamous ones, Mortal Kombat.
There's games, Mortal Kombat 10, I think, so in there. Like,
I'm pretty sure I've downloaded everything I want.
It's worth going in. It's worth going in and claiming it, just in case, because as long as you still have PS Plus, you'll get to keep these games. But if you don't download them by May, then you won't be able to download them. So just in case.
What are they removing? Are they removing that subscription service then?
No. They're just removing that perk. So like
the basic perk for the basic plan, it's a perk that you get like a collection.
It's like 12 free games. Hits. Like it's like 12 free PS4 games to play on your PS5.
Wow, God.
And they're taking them away from the 9th of May because, to be fair, I mean it's been a thing for about 2 or 3 years at this point. So, you've had your chance. I guess. I guess that's the way Sony see it.
And you still do,
and still, May's a while away. So you've got like.
I think it was something to get the PlayStation going, but then it was something to build up games for that.
And also, I liked the idea that it meant if you were coming from Xbox and you didn't have any PS5 games to play, as soon as you bought a PS5, you had those, like games, you know what I mean? Especially if you missed like God of War and Last of Us, like it's a great, it's a great place to kick off from.
I didn't have PS4 at all, like so.
Yeah, if you're coming in fresh, then it's absolutely worth. Yeah.
Oh, it's dead handy. I can't. I know what the lads pay for one of the higher subscriptions, but the basic one's all right for me now at the moment. Like the games I end up getting that I like are usually really cheap. There's not many that like. I think I've said before the first one, and how long are we into the recording of Raw Resident Evil? Resident Evil 4 is going to be the first. I'm going to buy that day one because it's coming out the day of my birthday. But yeah,
that's one thing I've noticed that I was watching like Dead Space, like just kind of walkthrough of it, the new one, and I'm like, oh, it's like, I mean, it's great, it looks fab, but it's the exact same game, and I'm like, oh, I just played that, and it really resonated with what you said, Dan. Like, just get it on sale.
When did you play it, Chris? The original?
Oh, like about 6 months ago. So I know everything.
What's interesting is you say it's the same game. They have changed some things. Like, you can read.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You can read my review to see all the things that changed. I do go through them all, but it is more than just a lick of paint. Like they've added Isaac having a voice has added a lot to like.
Yeah, the conversation.
The character didn't speak in the original game.
No, he didn't. And the zero gravity parts, they are way better. Like, instead of just going from platform to platform, you can fly about. So you're having like zero gravity battles with aliens and stuff. Like, they've added there is stuff there that wasn't there before. Like, it is more than just a lick of paint. But yeah.
Oh no, I'm definitely going to get it.
My thing is though, it's worth playing, but no, what you're saying about wait for a sale, it's not worth £70. Like, it's on PS Store now, it's £69.99. It's not worth that.
Oh.
Sick!
£70 on the PlayStation Store. Like, nah, sorry. Like, it's
any game unless you're really fucking dying for it. It's going to be like if you're going to go 6 months after playing it. Like
the only thing I'd
enjoy it more than a year, like or something.
I'd probably pay that for the new Spider-Man. To be fair, if they turned around and were like £80, I'd be like, aye, all right.
Oh yeah, if the game I want to buy.
But there's certain games, it's a very small percentage. Yeah.
Man, did you see the way that came off your tongue? £80. Remember when games were like 30 and then they came
to be fair,
40?
I do personally, I don't grudge them raising it because I feel like it's been a long time coming. Like, games still aren't as expensive as they were in the 90s, especially when you take inflation into account. Like the £90, £100 sometimes. Like for
really?
Really?
For like PS1 or
PS1, Nintendo 64, like round about that era, games were like
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah,
work out about that.
So
but you can get like that's the one thing about the like my PC before I haven't played a game on it in ages, but like I was just filling that up with games that I could get for nothing like that. Or you go into you get those sites where you can get the codes, get them cheap.
Yeah.
Like getting the whole catalog games for like €20 and then just literally never playing them. And
Yep.
PlayStation's like that too. You get stuff on sale.
Totally.
Say, I'll get that. And like, you see a game, like, I must get that. And like, I've had it for months. I didn't even realize. Like,
I could genuinely take a year off like work, and I still wouldn't get through everything on my PC and everything on my PlayStation. Like, honestly, and I realise that is just like a pure first.
Can we have another pandemic for get paid?
Yeah. Right, before we move on to what we've been watching, though, I wanted to go through a wee bit of DC news that is not related to what we're going to talk about. This is kind of stuff that's out with the James Gunn stuff. So there's some details being revealed about Colin Farrell's Penguin show. So it's been confirmed that it's going to have 8 episodes. And this is a quote from Colin Farrell, who said, "It's going to be an 8-part thing around Oz's rise to power, filling that power vacuum created when Falcone was killed in the Batman. The second Penguin feature will pick up where the series will end." So I don't know if he's saying the 6th season of the show or the next time. Maybe he means the next Batman movie. I think he means the next Batman movie. The second Batman will pick up where the series will end. I think that's what he's saying. That this is going to lead to
okay.
chapter 2.
Mad to see like fucking Batman on TV. He's got a cameo.
Imagine.
Like, I can't imagine he's going to be absent from the whole thing.
Definitely, he'll be in the background at least, or you'll see the signal or something. Speaking of the man himself, the Dark Knight, he's getting a sequel. He's getting a part 2. They're doing Matt Reeves' Batman is confirmed that he's doing 3 movies. He's doing a trilogy, and the next movie, which is part 2, will apparently release in October of 2025. So. Couple of years.
Did it do any? Was it just the announcement, or did they give any? I didn't see any any actual description of what they could potentially be. It just gives you. There wasn't any title screen in it.
Nothing.
It just said this is what's going to happen.
Just Matt. Yeah. It was other outlets that posted this, and then Matt Reeves retweeted it with we logos of the bat symbol. So basically, just confirming that it's real. But yeah, it's coming. So
I am Batman.
God.
Yeah.
So it was successful. Like I think it didn't get to what 1 billion, what every fucking comic book movie gets now, but
it wasn't far off. I don't think.
Was it only 700?
It might have made 1 billion since. It might have been there since. Hold on, let's look up.
Sales.
Let's look up the Batman.
It's sad that, isn't it? Like, it's no made 1 billion. It's no worth the sequel.
Yeah. That's how they judge this stuff on. Like, that's the way Netflix keeps judging their fucking thing on growth. But like, I guess to a degree. But like,
you're
after
right.
a certain amount of time,
you're right, Chris. 770 million. Yeah,
oh.
But it was made. It was made for 200. So
see if you look at
half a billion in profit. Like, it's not bad.
If you look at Batman, see Batman Begins, that I think that didn't even get. That got really low, and then because the success of it and people watching it at home, when the sequel came out, it just went up. Yeah. So that's could happen with that.
Well, there was a big fucking. Instead of it looking like a very kind of muted story, that like Joker, and there was a lot of hype around that too.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
So performance alone.
We'll talk about the Batman again later when we get into the James Gunn stuff, because again we know that's separate, but we'll get there.
It's an Elseworld.
Before we go through all that shit, is there anything you guys have been watching or playing or reading this week that you'd like to let us know about?
Big one. Last of Us.
Yeah, let's talk about Last of Us. Yeah.
What did you think? Was it shit?
As I was saying in the chat, so I protect the person's identity a bit, but a friend of mine who, like, again, I wouldn't say he's anti-woke, but I wouldn't consider him woke. Like, again, I don't consider woke, like
a real word.
You can imagine what someone else has in their life, and you don't have to be a dick about it. But he would say stupid stuff from time to time, or be a little bit teenagery sometimes. He's not teenagery, but like he just wouldn't say homophobic stuff occasionally. But I never saw him like behave differently to someone because of where they're from or whatever, like, or what, whatever they do. But when he said he was going to watch the episode, I was like, oh Jesus, what's he going to say? And he fucking best episode of any TV show he's ever seen.
Wow.
He was broken up by it, and like just. I think it's just a testament to the storytelling. Like, it's just done so well.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I put a screenshot in the chat. Like, I've seen folk, even just trolls in comment sections, being like, "Oh, I normally hate woke things, but this was done really well." So, like, even the trolls that normally, I mean, this is getting review bombed now, like this episode, because of the gay thing, obviously.
I didn't hear
is it? Oh my
god! But there are people, even like we're saying, that are obviously kind of like right wing, because whatever views they've got, and they're like, "Oh, this was actually a decent piece of TV." I thought it was one of the best pieces of TV I've ever seen. Like, for me,
it was a
right
shock
away. It's up there with like my favorite episode of Breaking Bad is Crawl Space, the episode where Walt's under the house laughing when the money's gone. That's my favorite. Probably maybe my favorite episode of TV ever. And then I'd say the Battle of the Bastards for Game of Thrones. I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, but that episode was incredible. For me, this episode's up there with those. Like, it's up there with some of the best TV I've ever seen, I think.
And it's not based on the main characters.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, really, you can look at this as a one-off. Like, it's a short film almost. Like,
shot, as you might say in the comic.
I mean, it did have an effect. At the end, we see Joe and Ellie and how it's kind of related to their journey, but only briefly. But I was worried.
Yeah.
So, I don't really avoid spoilers. So before I watched the episode, I had read obviously that it's touching, it's emotional, whatever, and I'd also heard that basically Ellie never really gets to have the interactions with Bill like she does in the game. So I didn't outright read the words, Bill dies, but it basically said, that Ellie never gets to interact with him. And I was worried about that. I was like, well, that is a big part of the game, is kind of Ellie's humour and how she reacts to Bill and how he reacts to her and how he's kind of grouchy and whatever. And then you find out why he's grouchy, because of Frank, who's already dead in the game.
Right.
So, because we never see Frank alive in the game, they just find his body. And they also don't outright say, like, oh, that's, my relationship. He refers to him as his partner a few times, but you don't know if he just means his survival partner, or if he means, like, his romantic partner. And then it's only it's kind of afterwards that you realise that they were a gay couple. Like, Ellie finds, like, a note and stuff, like, to... I think it's pretty much the note that we've seen in the show that Frank leaves to Bill. So, like, it's sort of revealed in hindsight in the game, whereas obviously we're seeing it here before the event of their death.
Does the kind of the punchline to them being
spoilers, by the way, for this episode, we should have said that.
Spoilers, yeah.
Does the punchline of the game, not the punchline again, but the way it's like the last kind of note of him being gay in the game, is that just when Ellie pulls the porn mag out in the car afterwards?
Yeah, so there's that as well. So, like, during the mission when you're wandering about, I take it it's the place where Frank's killed himself, I think. You can find the note.
But you can see the gay mags too.
Yeah, no, you can, yeah. And you can also
find I saw
which basically confirms that. And then they outright address it in that cutscene. So I guess the magazine and the cutscene is the only part that's not missable. I guess you could miss the rest if you didn't bother reading it, So yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't.
Oh, so
I saw it in the game. I thought it was a comic book, so I used photo mode to look at it. I don't even think I copped it fully at the time. Maybe the car scene. I'm struggling to remember that little period of it, because I think that I maybe stopped playing it for a couple of weeks and went back to it afterwards.
So did he kill himself in the game? Did he just shoot himself or something? Or
he hangs himself, because you never even see his face. You just see his feet hanging. Well, Bill's kind of upset, like they break into the house and then you see the feet hanging, and then there's a note line. So yeah, so
what do you think from a game's perspective to the TV? Are you happy with both, or do you think the TV version was better? What do you think?
So my takeaway was, I wouldn't change anything about the episode. I think the episode was perfect, peak television, incredible performances, incredible writing, all that stuff. I can also see why they changed it, because that part of the game, Bill gives you a car, which is how it's the same end result. Like in the show, Joe and Ellie run away in the car, so it's the same end result. But Bill helps you get the battery for the car or whatever. He helps you get the car, and then the car won't start. So like Ellie's steering it and trying to get it started, while Joe and Bill push the car and shoot the zombies that are attacking. But that's really only in the game to give the player an extra element of like action. In the show, you don't need to do that. So that's really all you're losing, is that wee bit of gameplay. And then, like I said, the interaction between Ellie and Bill are quite funny. Like Ellie going to touch his traps and Bill being like, "Don't touch that, you little shit." Like, you kind of miss out on some of that.
Yeah.
But
I remember, like, it's just kind of weird.
For me, in hindsight, that trade-off, although as funny as that is in the game, that trade-off is worth it for this episode of TV to happen. Like it's a worthwhile trade to be like, right, okay, Ellie maybe loses a wee bit of development because she never gets that interaction, but Bill gets all this expanded development along with Frank. And we also see Joel's history with them, being kind of friends with him before and get to go for a meal with him and shit in the middle of the apocalypse. Like it builds, and Joel and Tess, even their relationship gets kind of like expanded a bit. So no, I absolutely think the way they did it in the show was beneficial to the story, like 100%.
I think the way they did it when like the first episode came out, I didn't even fully cop the Tess when Joel were an item or a couple, and then in like I think you remember people going like, oh yeah, maybe I think, oh no, they were just together a little bit, but then it actually shows them together for a long time. Like like that's back. He has like full on black hair then.
Yeah,
so that's he's 32 again or 36 or whatever he's supposed to be in the.
Although listen, see with that salt and pepper look, he looks great, man. He sits.
Oh,
he's still great, though, isn't he?
Almost, but I just think that man's hair should have its own, category in that show. His hair, especially with Apocalypse, it looks great.
Yeah, well, yeah. I just thought it was interesting. Like even when Frank said, "Oh, we're going to have friends," I was just like, "Oh, that's just such a strange concept." And I'm like, I wouldn't do that in Apocalypse. I don't even do it now.
The only one gripe I would say the whole episode is they only get attacked once in the whole 20 years.
That we see. Only once that we see. I just kind of presumed that it happened every now and again, but we only see it the one time.
Yeah, but he could just be in a good place,
just be lucky. I guess.
Yeah, because even as but I guess the funny thing was, Joel said something to him like that about, oh well, look, you're out of the way here. Walkers won't come, or whatever, infected won't come by, but like someone will come, and then that's kind of like a couple of scenes before someone actually does come.
Yeah.
So mad that no one else did before. But I guess it just shows like when you're playing games and in a computer game, but if you're you fortify a place, but you can never fully get safe. That's what it would be like if you fortified something. Then you're a target for people who see what you've built, and then
they want it.
To take it away.
You'd have to get in with a lot of good people and work together to build any kind of. But I think that's one thing I found interesting about it was you never really see that in zombie stuff where people just make stuff safe and then that's it and they're safe.
Yeah.
I love that idea. We need a film like that again. I guess people didn't just copy this, but
I did think though that obviously Bill the way he is and the conversation they have about has he ever been with a man and all that, they kind of talk about that, Frank asked him all this. You realise that Bill is just a really lonely guy, both before and after the apocalypse. He's always just been a weird loner. So I do think that's Bill's one weak spot. Had Frank been the type of guy to take advantage of that, he could have lured him into a vulnerable position and killed him and took everything he has. Bill did open himself up to that kind of possibility. It's just lucky that Frank was a nice guy, but had it gone another way, that, I guess that would be the weak spot for Bill. That would be his vulnerability. To get close to him and make him think that something's going to happen, and then boom, do you know what I mean? Take everything he's got.
That's the human condition. We're all greedy bastards.
It's interesting. I was listening to the official HBO podcast, which is Troy Baker. Is it Troy Baker?
Yep.
Yeah, he's the host. I haven't listened to enough. I think I might listen to a little bit of one before. But Druckmann, I think, was on the one for episode 3. And the way they spoke about it was, so it's middle-aged gay couple. The cinematographer was middle-aged gay and married or whatever. The editor was middle-aged gay and married. The actor played Frank, I think, also. Married, gay, and thing, and they actively sought a gay person for that role.
Yeah.
Because I think they were kind of had the mind of, I don't know, was Nick Offerman cast first, and they were just we need to make, we're whatever, but we need to make this a gay story. We need to put it through that lens. And I think so. Cinematographer, possibly the director too, I think. But the way they kind of came to it was they were saying it was more about being in a middle-aged couple than being gay, really. That was the main. That's what they found when they were doing it. Obviously, it's gay people. They're not going to be going, oh well, yes, gay. The whole way through. You're just going to relate to it as immediately as it is to you. And what was the other interesting thing? The actor who played Frank, I heard his name a load of times. Murray Hewlett.
Murray something. Yeah.
Something like that. I think he's Australian, actually. He's possibly White Lotus playing an Australian.
Right.
There's a scene, I just saw a snippet of a scene where someone's talking, so this is so you're gay. So you're gay. And he's like, yeah. You sleep with men. He's like, yeah, that's usually a good sign. But he said the moment, how that played out was, when was the moment? Because I was thinking of it when I was watching it. I was like, look, it's hard enough to tell someone's interested in you in a heterosexual setting, but what is that about? Or whatever, a cis relationship or whatever. But with gay people, it's like there's the element then of, well, how to know the person is also gay on top of that. But I think I might have asked a gay guy before, and he was like, you just know. And it's kind of like it's the same way if you know something, you kind of just know. But they were talking about it in response. I don't know, was this the gay actor, but the point where, like, or a couple of the writers or people on the production were saying, it's like, there's some people you know, some people you never guess, and some people you have an idea about. But, like, that's kind of how it breaks down to those three categories, basically. And the surprise can be either way. It can be like, oh, they actually are gay, or they're actually not gay. But the moment, I'm forgetting the character names now. Nick Offerman. What's his character's name? Bill has the gun on him, and there's like a moment of silence. I think I copped it at the time that your man smiled. Well, I already noticed when your man smiled, but I didn't know that it didn't pass me with any significance. But apparently, it's when he smiled is when he realized Bill was gay.
Right.
Because like there was just, he picked up a vibe when it was like the gun was on him, stared at him for a while. But it was only after he went in for the dinner,
the piano part
interaction thing sang from. That's like, oh no, actually he's gay, but now I want him now. Like that was. I just thought that was a very interesting.
The piano scene was great, man. That was a brilliant scene.
Yeah, it was emotional.
No, stop. And he's so fucking. Ron Swanson,
almost like OCD. He's so like OCD, almost like it was great.
There's a clip where you can see like Ron Swanson training for The Last of Us, and it's just like all clips where he's so that character. What was it? You know the line where he's watching the fucking guys come in, they're like the forced evacuation.
Yeah,
and he's coming in the top, and he's looking at the whatchamacallit. He's looking at them through the cameras. The line where it's, not today, you jackbooted, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be, in the script, that's supposed to be just what the character's thinking in their head. Nick Offerman was apparently like, no, I'm going to announce, this needs to be announced to the world. So he's coming in with it like, yeah, and it's just, there was moments of like just feeling kind of vulnerability for them too, like, because, you know, when like, the idea, like, I thought Joel was going to be there in that attack.
Right.
Because they were saying that when the randomers attacked their compound and like Bill got shot and that kind of thing, I thought Joel was going to be like in that attack. He was going to be doing it, and I just because they say Joel does bad things. I guess that'd be probably too much though. Like
that's a thing I've not seen. Is that a thing in the game where you get as you progress, you get flashbacks of some how bad shit he's done, or is it just a thing in the background?
Really.
It's more just through the way that other characters react to him. Sometimes they're like, you know, you just get the impression that they've seen him do some shit, but you don't ever see it. No,
seems to be kind of play him like a Wolverine type. It's like some bad stuff. But
he's got
they might delve into it and it never gets that bad. I don't know. Like that's
the only time they explicitly say it is, and I think this is coming up in one of the episodes because I seen it in the trailer for like upcoming episodes. But like this guy limps. This isn't the game. This was one of the first trailers. The guy limps out in the middle of the road with like a dodgy leg, and he's like, "Help, help, help!" And Ellie's like, "Are we not slowing down?" And Joe's like, "He's not hurt." And then he puts his foot in the gas, and then the guy pulls a gun out and starts shooting, and then they get in a crash, and then they get in a fight. Later on, Ellie asks him, she's like, "How did you know that he was faking?" And he's like, "Because I used to do that. Like, I used to do that to get people. Like, I used to act like I was hurting." So, like, that's the only time. That's the only time he kind of explicitly says like he used to do shit like that just to get people's gear and whatever, and food and stuff. But yeah.
Wow. I guess that's if you were to survive in that kind of world.
That's how you survive. Yeah.
That stuff. Yeah. It's not like you're going to be living in a nice hotel. You're going to be like,
no, unless you're Bill and you've already got a bunker ready to go and shit. Like then you're laughing.
I think that. So he left. Did he leave his own house? And that's his mother's house.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought he just lived with his mother before the apocalypse. Then,
or was that the same place?
Yeah, I think it was the same place. I think.
Oh, I kind of thought because he was filling up his car with. Yeah, so I think he just fortified his old estate basically. Because I kind of just had a feeling that he goes off, he drives off and gets a lot of things. Like he puts his boat in the back and then he fills up his thing with petrol and stuff. And it's funny actually because the zombie book I was reading last week, there is a prepper in it too. Like I was just seeing, it's interesting. They're like they're more of a kind of a new age. Well, not necessarily new age, but I guess it's a relatively new idea. There was probably always people like it, but it's a whole thing now. Like people. Just preppers, isn't it? Like, but like, they actually would do quite well.
Yeah, I mean,
there was that Walking Dead thing with it was like a load of guest stars in it, just people doing 1 or 2 episodes.
Right.
Chris Dragan, what's the big guy, black guy, in Brooklyn 999?
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews, yeah, he was in an episode with, was it Olivia Munn, I think, and I think he was a prepper in it, and he was like had this radio conversation with another prepper, like, so it's just funny to see that kind of trope come up a bit more.
Yeah. No, I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was an interesting thing to the start when we see his bunker. He's got a "Don't Tread on Me" poster on the wall, which not all the time, but it's usually associated with like conservative Americans. Usually, it's a Republican thing.
You were saying he was like this. He
was like a Republican. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's going with that stereotype that all conspiracy theorists are right wing, which isn't true, but. You know, for them to tell one of the most romantic, beautiful, gay love stories ever seen on television with a character who's probably voted for Trump in the past, like, I just thought it was an interesting kind of turnaround, you know. Well, I guess 2003 Trump wouldn't.
But there's a line when they're
like,
having
Bush,
when they're having the argument about having friends and stuff. There's a line where. Because I'm with the government being Nazis. It's like, the government literally are Nazis.
And I was like, that's people in the street. Like, yeah.
But then, like, they're killing people now and stuff. And it's like, I think he said something like, before I mentioned that was just a very funny line.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I guess I didn't fully think of it. I was like, is there something else? But I guess, yeah, the army, just you said it now, the army guys, like, there is.
Yeah, just killing people in the street if they're infected, yeah.
And even that like shot of showing Ellie find the grave, and then just the shot of that mother and her daughter, I was like, or child, baby.
Yeah,
I was like, fucking hell, that's actually fairly grim.
That really put me in mind of like Schindler's List, like the Nazis and stuff. That was a parallel I drew. I was like,
that's an element I guess I've never really thought of in the game. Have they shown that's what they did? Is that something that's known to be done?
I mean, the first game opens, you see people getting shot in the street, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know about the mass grave thing. If you ever come across one of them, I feel like you probably do at some point, but yeah.
You would though, like if you were thinking, if you were from a government perspective, you're like, right, we need to kill as much.
Mate, it happened during. I don't want to get too conspiracy, but it happened during COVID. Like China were doing it to their people for a while. Like, some of the footage you saw on the internet of mass graves and stuff, like, it's pretty intense. So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that's a bit dark.
Mass graves in that island outside out in New York, like they'd have mass graves.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think there was like.
But yeah, it was an incredible episode.
Another thing sorry.
On you go.
Okay. Another thing I thought would have been nice is when Joel and Ellie got there, and I really thought it was going to happen. That was going to be a couple of years before Frank died.
Right.
I thought you just see them and they maybe just having an argument or something. Yeah, I thought that would have been fucking.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, it'd been really nice just to know that they've a little bit more time.
Yeah.
In the universe or something like, but they did. I guess they put the dates, so it is like 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, I shared that meme in the group. It's like, man, 2023 is like, or the outbreak happened in 2003. Is they never got to see Peter say pizza time. That is just the thing of
what bleak world. Yeah,
Dave Franco, and he's like, I have nothing left, only Spider-Man 2002. That's nice.
I was going to say the last thing about. I also think it did take incredible restraint not to show Bill and Frank's bodies. I thought a few times when one of them was opening doors and exploring, I think it was Ellie, somebody was like exploring the house, I was like, eventually they're going to come across the bodies, and then they didn't, and they had it in the note, and then the last shot of the episode panned inside the room and showed you Joe and Ellie leaving from the window, but they didn't show the bodies, and I was like, do you know what, a cheaper show would have showed the bodies, and they didn't need to. Like, just acknowledge that it was that room, and it was almost like that was their legacy, was leaving them the car, and it was quite symbolic, and it was just effective, like just good filmmaking, I think.
Do you know, I have another good tidbit about the window shot. They wanted to do that for every episode,
right?
And it was going to be like, the game when you're the loading screen is the window.
Yeah.
So that was the point of that. And I think, I don't know, like, say, it kind of felt like, just from the way they were saying it, was like, well, we'd shot X amount of them. We had that shot already. We weren't going to use it, or like if we didn't put this, but like we were happy we can get that one shot in.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And even just the thought of that, because again, that's the benefit of having the literal fucking creator of the game working on the show. It's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like it's not just like they might have that shot in another thing, but it don't really mean anything. But like they were going down to the fucking menu screen, they were like, we're putting this in. And someone was even saying when they get to that station place that like it gave the vibe of Joel looking for stuff.
Mm.
You know, he's searching the presses. But I kind of thought like searching that one twice or something. And I thought it was a bit silly that he just let Ellie just like go off into like, I know he like has been there, he probably thinks whatever, but like he hasn't been there in like how long? How does he not know there's not something there? I thought that was very fucking interesting that when the infected, what do they call them? The runner. Runners are regular.
Clickers.
The guy just in there, like the fucking whatever happened, the wall had collapsed on him or something.
Yeah.
I just thought it was very, and like that means like I guess that would make me wonder how long was he there, because he obviously had some of the growth coming up out of his head. But like, do they not still need food to survive, kind of thing? They're not really undead, are they?
Well, I guess mushrooms don't really need. They just need like soil and stuff. They don't need food. So I guess it's the same.
And they don't need air. They don't need light.
Yeah, mushrooms grow in the dark. So. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
I guess it's just whatever mushroom takes. Like,
I just kind of the impression that they were. I'm watching a lot of. I'm trying to find the name of the YouTube channel. He does lovely, like he's a lovely. He's like a microbiologist, but he does breakdowns of all like mostly zombie stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. You'll have a field day with Last of Us then.
That's his whole year.
I told you about these guys before. The Last of Us are fucking absolutely marveling DC for their thumbnail for their photo. They just photoshopped two of the hosts kissing. What's your man? It's Ganoke Gaming. I'll try to find one of them here just so I can get the name up. But he does like a lot of like he might go over the plot, but then he breaks down every single fucking like in like Resident Evil or The Last of Us. He goes through each different thing and like breaks them down in a scientific way. But he doesn't just go, "Oh, this doesn't make any fucking sense." He tries to give whatever's in the game meaning and like possibilities of how something like that could happen. I just thought it was very fucking interesting.
That sounds cool.
Is there anything in the future that you think? Because I think I'm happy if they don't dive deep into any more of those, like Bill and Frank. But I kind of want more. But do you think they're not going to do it?
Oh, I'd say if it's done that, they're going to do a lot more.
There's another one coming. It's not a relation. It's not a romantic relationship, but it's a familial relationship, and the way that ends is also tragic. So I'm not even going to. I'm not going to.
Oh shit! Yeah,
there's something
that's
for me.
Horrible.
For me, the darkest moment in the game hasn't happened in the show yet, and some of the stuff with how dark they've went with Bill and Frank and stuff, I'm dreading that moment. I'm like, oh, I know it's coming. And I'm
but they not kind of like ease you up a lot, like as fucking Bill himself says, this is not the tragic end. It's like that was a nice story.
Yeah,
really.
no, what? Yeah, it was
in the game.
Yeah,
like.
But I just mean, I don't know. I think we haven't seen the heavy stuff yet, and yet people are already pretty devastated by what they're doing. So I just think there's even sadder stuff to come.
Yeah.
Is it going to be more of Ellie and Joel integrated into that sadness, or is it going to be
No, in the game it is. They might change it, but in the game
it actually is a very, even just the arc of that. We won't go too far into it, but just the arc of that is very interesting in the game too.
Yeah, it's abrupt.
The next thing is
anyway.
run the same thing.
Man,
just your man's name, just because I have been watching a lot of them this week. ROANOKE Gaming. Roanoke Gaming. Lots of like just good solid, like especially when you watch something that's like that's what I look. One of the things when I watch something kind of on a whim and I haven't looked it up first, that if there's no one talking about it on YouTube or just random people like us, but I don't know that. So I'm not gonna listen to them. You're like, shit, no one reviewed it that I like to listen to talk about films.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys have been watching this week? Moving on for The Last of Us. Anything else that you want to talk about?
I actually finished. I bought the book from The Witcher, The Blood of the Elves on Audible.
Right.
Listened to the 11 hours of it, and man, it's basically the first 2 seasons of The Witcher show, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like I was expecting a little bit more different, like
Right.
little like wee nuggets of like,
Well,
they never done
apparently
this. And then,
Cavill
The exact same thing.
was following it, script for script. Like Cavill was a pure
Yeah.
hardcore, like was purist, I guess. To follow like the source material. So I guess that's why.
I was hoping for like some nuggets that you never saw in the book, but I was like, oh, it's literally play by play.
That's
Maybe they
weird.
focused a little bit
So
more.
is it
Yeah.
hard? Like, would you say that one's more enjoyable than the other, or is it just too similar to even like the sides? Like,
I mean, no, like you're going more with your visual imagery and you're creating your own kind of thing.
It's different,
when you're
yeah. It's
listening.
not
Yeah.
gonna play the exact same.
But like the one thing I did see comparing it to the Sandman Audible and this Audible, this guy was just doing it by himself. There was no music or anything.
right,
In the Sandman one, there was
more
like
production.
you had James McAvoy, and it was the
Cast,
production
like,
level
fucking
was so much
Yeah.
better. And you're like, oh wow, that's why the effect of all these wee little things makes the book so much more interesting. Because it was weird because you could hear the guy speaking as Geralt, and then he would speak as Yennefer,
Right.
and then he would speak.
Oh yeah,
Like, what
yeah.
I never thought of that as a concept.
Yeah,
Did
it's so
they
weird.
put on a slight girlier voice then?
Oh no.
It done.
I think I've listened to some audiobooks, but I just never comprehended that. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
It is so weird. Like after like the first 3
Oh
hours.
no, Geralt, you
getting-
can't go into the castle. That's why I buzzed. That sounds so silly.
It really is. It really is.
I couldn't think I could ever
Oh,
listen to an audiobook like that ever. Like,
That's funny.
I never even thought of that as a possibility with them. But yeah, I could never.
You get over it. You get over it a wee bit, but like the first 3 hours is like, is you joking?
Yeah.
Like,
I can't. Frankly, I can't do audiobooks. I can't like podcasts. I could be doing whatever when I'm listening to it, but anything but a narrative, I'm like gone 2 seconds. Like I can't keep track of it.
What I'd love to do is, and I've not done it yet, but I'd love to sit down and a book that I already own and get the audiobook and listen to the author reading it to me. Like Dave Grohl's book came out last year, and I bought Dave Grohl's book. And I've been meaning to do it since I got the book, or Courtney got me it. Actually, it was a gift. Since Courtney got me it, I've been meaning to sit down and buy the audiobook and have Dave Grohl read the words to me. I think that'd be great. But finding the time to sit and do that, do you know what I mean? Like,
so what? You're just
following it. I think that'd be great. Why not? Like,
that's exactly what I would love.
He's telling you everything.
No, but as you said, like
it makes your reading pointless.
If I listen to the
audio, he's agreeing with me when I'm reading.
The audio on it, if you just listen to audio on its own, it would be kind of hard to like follow, and especially if I'm driving or I'm working or whatever. I wouldn't want to pull the focus away. Like a podcast, I feel like you can kind of get away with, not paying as much. You can pick back up later. Yeah. Whereas when you're listening to like any sort, whether it's an autobiography or a narrative book, like I feel like you need to kind of pay attention. So I just think it would be nice to have the actual words in front of you and follow along, and then you're actually hearing it in the writer's words. Both literally and
yeah.
I just think that would be a nice experience. But
it'd be interesting. I guess because like the best times anyway. Like I'd find that when I'm trying to read. Like it's been Jesus, we don't know about 2 years now since I read a novel. Yeah, I'd read a paragraph and like what, and then I just go back and start it again. Like and
yeah,
I've noticed like then with The Last of Us actually, and with Andor, I've noticed I've had to do that a lot. Where I'm like,
are rewatching stuff?
Just like. What happened 5 minutes ago? Like, skip back, and like it's kind of weird, but I think it's the best outcome because you're taking it like you're like, I'll just figure it out. But like if you just go back, because you do miss little bits here and there that are interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it shows the different in quality. I want to try and get another one that's got a little bit more production in it. Hopefully there's another book with it, like the sequel.
Well,
but man, it shows.
Yeah.
I've only listened to like ones that are kind of on like more podcasts, like through my podcast app. There's the Wolverine one that's got a lot of production in it. That's got different voices. It's got sound effects. It's got it's kind of more production behind it. There was one for the Callisto Protocol that was like a prequel, and it was Gwendolyn Christie was like the star, and she did the main voice. And then you had I'm pretty sure Sam Witwer was in it. I think Sam Witwer was like one of the other soldiers, and it was I kind of set up what you saw at the start of the game, so that was cool. And I had loads of production noises, sci-fi noises, and doors opening and whatever. Like,
I was listening to one with James Clement or Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, and I don't know if there's anyone else in it, but it was kind of like a Blackadder alternate reality fantasy pirate or boat thing, which is funny then because Murray from Thing did. Is it Black Flag? Or Death Flag or whatever.
Our Flag Means Death? No.
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah. So it's funny. It seemed to, well, I don't know if that based on something originally, but it's just boats or whatever, pirates, whatever, are people on a boat. So it seemed to have a slight similarity to it. But that was one that I tried. I listened to like 2 or 3 episodes, but I was just like, I can't keep up with it. No matter what. If I'm like walking around, you nearly want to just fucking sit there and listen to it.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to be, I don't know, I think even just being on a bus can distract you with them. Like I must try the Wolverine one again because I heard it's like a comic, and there's a couple others then Marvel have done in the last kind of.
I'm on the set. I listened to the first season of Wolverine. I liked it. I got about halfway through the second, and I've kind of fell away from it. But I haven't meaning to get back to it. But yeah.
Yeah, was it connected or was the first season its own story?
No, it follows on. Like he leaves a certain location at the end of the first story, and then the second story he's in a different place. That's really, but it's the same. It's like
bastard.
They reference the first season and the second season and stuff. So yeah,
you can't be over here with 6 claws and then go over there with 6 claws.
I'm trying to be vague and not give spoilers because I know you're sensitive.
It's a no claw environment.
Yeah. Jerd, is there anything else that you've been on this week that you'd like to tell us about? To share with the class?
Have my crack with still playing a bit of PS2 Spider-Man and X-Men Legends, which is getting X-Men Legends to work on my PS2. I have to like put in another game, let that load up, play it for a while, and then go back and just. That's
weird.
It just doesn't. Wow. More often than not, when if I just turn on the PS2, it just won't come on. It just keeps. And even I got it to the last. Usually, if you click on the disc, it goes black. But then it just goes back to that screen again. The last day I was getting where the PlayStation 2 thing would come up, it'd go black for ages, and then we'd go back to the screen. I was like, so yeah, and then I tried to like put in the disc, take it out, blah, blah. But
like the game with the blocks, the screen with the blocks, and it was like green and red.
No, that doesn't come up. It just, when you're coming to select the disc or the memory card, it just keeps going back to that screen until you put in another disc. And like I've noticed, I put in other discs, they'll load up. But I even like start them, but I literally had to just play Spider-Man PS2 for a while, then go back and try X-Men Legends. And I don't know, I think my PlayStation's just been, oh yeah, this is what we do, this is what I do. And it was something about, it just doesn't have a good instant chemistry with the X-Men Legends one, so I have to kind of fluff it up with Spider-Man. Yeah. Well, the only thing I want to say about that in particular was, and then I went back to doing a little bit more of Spider-Man PS4. I'm like on the last DLC, but it's just funny to see because I'd be playing both and then I'd be trying to do like the web zip from one in the other game. So it's just like it's interesting to play basically, even though it's not really a remaster, it kind of is of the PS4 played them side by side. But films, I watched one last night and one the night before. I'll go with last night because I can't remember the night before. The Howling from 1981, which was directed by, I think it's Joe Dante.
Right.
Did he do Gremlins?
Yes.
Yes, so I think this film basically got him Gremlins. Very interesting. A lot of, like, from the very get-go, like, so it's a werewolf film, and my friend just said this to me, like, oh yeah, just go, it's just done well, like, it stands up to this time. Because I think I had been talking about that one I watched around Halloween called The Hunger, or the fucking, it was like a vampire one set in New York with fucking Christopher Walken in it.
Yeah, that's right.
That wasn't the exact. I didn't see exactly the same similarity. So it starts off, and even like the opening credits is all this like, you think, all right, werewolf film. The opening credits is all this like snippets of fucking audio from different places, and it's kind of weird. The next thing you're in a TV studio, and they're like shooting the news, and this woman. The broadcaster, it was getting all these weird fucking messages from a murderer who was stalking women. So they were trying to set up like a sting operation to catch him. And she ends up going into like this porno theater. And then the man is just there. And she kind of sees him, like there's lights and stuff. And he's making her watch this like really fucking aggressive, I guess, a snuff film basically. And she kind of sees him in the darkness, but you can't really see much. And then cops come in and shoot him. And like I was like, what's going on there? But then she's like completely freaking out. She's I think it's the guy. No, actually, I'm not. He's an English guy. He could be the guy who was in the English Avengers. You know, the
the
Joanna
old
Lumley
one.
was
Yeah,
it.
Joanna Lumley.
I think it's that guy is playing this like psychiatrist doctor thing, and he's like, "Oh no, you should come away with us. We'll help you," because she can't remember what happened. She doesn't remember what she saw. So they're trying to unlock that memory, and they reckon if they unlock that memory, she'll be grand. And then so her and her husband go to this place, and then everyone's kind of acting a bit weird. Apparently, some of the character actors there are like massive stars. I think I might have saw the film years ago, or I saw a YouTube video about it before. But a big part of it is basically the werewolf transformations, which are both good, great for the time, but ridiculous because they just spend like
too
10 minutes doing it. And the keeps cutting back to the person who's just like good. And then after a while, I was just like, it'd be funny if
you would
like,
run away. You would run.
Yeah, come on. And then it's just like, this goes on forever. And I don't think it felt like, I think one of the fucking the transformations is animated because it's like, there's this like super fucking sexed up looking woman there who's like, she meets when they're at this campfire because it's like a retreat place, and the guy's going around looking for his wife, and she's like, "I'm looking for my wife." She's like, "My name is Peter." She's like, "I know your name," and she just has like cleavage of the gods and fucking. She's just really intense. Doesn't look like anyone else in the film. Really, she's very kind of vampirella looking, and slight spoiler, but she ends up seducing her fella, and when they first transform, it's animated. It's like in under a fire. Like that was weird. But then all the other ones, they have a lot of this glowy or like inflating stuff, and then you're like, but it just it takes so long to happen, and then
I just watched one on YouTube. That it's like a good solid 5 minutes, and they're just staring at each other.
Like that, and then it wraps up way too like some guy just shows up with a gun with silver bullets towards the end. But it does have a lot of really good actors in it and stuff. It's fucking worth to watch. It's obviously dated, but it's fun. And there were certain elements of it too that were quite smart, I thought.
I love the fact that it's all practical. Like it's interesting to see nowadays. Like it's probably, I don't even know, like the Wolfman. I don't know if that was practical. Like it came out like early 2000s.
I never saw that actually. It did it in the style of the old films. Like they didn't really change up. What?
Yeah. Because that is a lot of, like, you can tell that's a lot of practical effects and stuff, and that's why it probably took that long, because they're doing it frame by frame.
Because there's a certain point where like the face is like the teeth are coming out first, and then one thing I noticed was there was a bit where they had something where the front of the mouth was moving forward, but like it was just like two shots of that of it just coming forward and back, but you could tell by the nose shape. So like I was like, well, that nose wouldn't look right on the end of like a werewolf's nose or a dog's nose. But then there was another shot where the nose was more like, the nostrils were kind of flipped in a way that it would suit when it goes out. And there's just loads of, like, there was even a bit like, so they make a point to say, no, they can regenerate. Do you know what that means? It's like, so your man's arm gets chopped off, one of the werewolf's arms gets chopped off. And then it's just like, it was literally just when I was eating, I was like, oh, why did I could have had my food a little bit after the scene, but the hand, whatever it is, it's just like kind of pulsating and inflating, but then at a certain point it turns back into a human hand, but it's still just doing this, but it's been chopped off. And I'm like, is another werewolf going to grow here out of that arm? And like, it was just fun. There was like there were some things that were done very well, some things that were dated, and some things that were like the super sexy werewolf lady, her brother turns out to be the killer from earlier. Like, so he rose, like, they brought the body to the morgue and he comes back, but like he's just wearing like a sheepskin thing, and he's just like, I don't know, he looks like, draw a cartoon character who's a werewolf, and that's what he. So yeah, him and his sister just looked ridiculous. Everyone else was dressed normally, but the two of them looked like they came out of a Scooby-Doo TV show or something.
It's crazy to think that was 1980. That's 40 years ago. Fuck.
That's crazy. Yeah,
that's
madness, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, they were to watch. I kind of spoiled some of it there, but it's from 1980.
Yeah.
I realised how
spoiled the ending. The guy comes in and shoots.
I didn't realise how early it was in Dante's career. Like it was.
I think he was like 21 or so. He was really young when he made it.
Like it was just.
Or the effects guy was, because the effects guy is a known guy too.
It was before, like, I mean, it was. He'd only really done Piranha, was the only really big movie.
Yeah.
And then he did Police Squad, Twilight Zone, Gremlins, Inner Space. So like a lot of his hits have kind of came after that. But he also directed. Remember the Looney Tunes Back in Action movie with Brendan Fraser? That was Joe Dante.
No,
that was Joe Dante.
Oh yeah,
according to IMDb.
Oh my
god,
that was a money. That was probably a money grab.
I loved that movie when I was young. I loved that film.
So did I.
Oh, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but Brendan Fraser was on Mark Maron.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
He's everywhere now, isn't he? Like he's becoming.
So
he's a rising
Oscar
star
season
again.
into it.
Yeah, he's coming up.
Jake,
he'll get one for the whale.
I reckon I think he's winning it. He's a bookie's favourite. He's a bookie's favourite to win it. So we'll see. Okay. So I've not really been watching much this week. I've been playing a game for this article that I'm doing. Oh, talk about stuff that I'm doing, Fandom Wire stuff. Jerd was talking about PS2 games. I have written a script called "Why the PS2 is the greatest console of all time," and that's been sent off to the editors. So that'll be on the Fandom Wire channel at some point, probably a couple of weeks' time they get it edited and shit. But it's coming.
How many of them are Resident Evil? Or Metal Gear Solid?
I don't know. Metal Gear Solid is definitely in there, but I kind of tried to avoid.
Resident Evil 4.
I can't remember what went in it, to be honest.
That's your signature.
I tried to not just make it a list of games. Like that was what I was trying to avoid.
Okay.
But yeah, beyond that, I've been also researching another article, which was the most recent underrated games. So I was playing through something called Nier Replicant. Nier Replicant is talk of remakes as a remake, like Dead Space or like Resident Evil 2. But again, not just a lick of paint, like way more of a game than there was before. So like Platinum Games are a Japanese developer. They made Bayonetta, they made Metal Gear Rising, the one where you were riding. They made solid track record. They made the best Transformers game that's probably ever been made. I can't remember the name of it. But when it came out, I remember being like, "Oh, Platinum made this," and then I heard it was great. So I've not played it, but apparently that is the best Transformers game.
Is this still PS2? No,
I think it's either 3 or 4. This was recently. Like this was.
Yeah, I think there was one on the PS2. I think where
Platinum have only really been around since the PS3 era. I don't think they were around.
Oh, okay, yeah. There was a decent Transformers on the PS2, I think.
But yeah, so Platinum Games they made a game called Nier, which again PS3 game. I never played it. Looked too like Japanese RPG for me. Was never into that sort of thing. They made a game called Nier Automata in 2017 for the PS4, and I picked it up because it was quite heavily compared to Metal Gear. Apparently, it was Metal Gear sort of inspired at some parts, and was absolutely blown away. It was possibly my game of the year for that year. I thought it was incredible the way that there's so many different games in that game, and all of them are solid. Like there's parts of it, the most of it is an open world hack and slash game where you're fighting AI and robots, but there's also elements of. There's parts where you control a mech and you're in like this mech battle. There's parts that are platformers, like a side-on, side-scrolling platformer, like Crash Bandicoot or whatever. Like it goes through all these different, genres and it just does all of them solidly. There's it's something to do with the presentation and the vibe. Like it is a bit. Again, immediately me being narrow-minded, the first time I saw the game cover, I was like, "This looks too anime. This looks too like Japanese drawing to me." But see, when you're playing it with the presentation, it's the environments are absolutely stunning. You've got this like Japanese choir in the background, like singing these like kind of, I don't know, like ethereal songs while you're exploring. It was just presented well. It did everything that it did well, even though it was doing a lot. So Nier Replicant is the sequel that was released last year. Well, the prequel, I guess, because it was a remake of the first game, so a remake of Nier. But they've added, like, the original didn't have any voice acting. It was just the text at the bottom of the screen. Whereas now there's the voice acting for all the characters. They've added also to the combat. They've basically tried to make it more like Nier Automata. So far, I'd say it's probably halfway between the two experiences. Like, it doesn't feel like a dated remake, like what I assume the original game would feel like, although I never played it. But it also doesn't feel like as modern day as Nier Automata did. It doesn't feel quite as like tight with the combat. The innovation's not quite there. It looks stunning, like especially considering the copy I got sent was a PS4 copy, because I don't think there is a PS5 copy. I think it was one of the last games to only come out for PS4 before the the transition. But it looks stunning. It looks gorgeous. Again, the presentation's breathtaking, and it's fun. So that's what I've been playing.
It's Nier Replicant. That's a remake of the original game.
Nier, yeah. And Nier Automata is a sequel. If you've not played Nier Automata, you can pick that up for about $10 now, I think, in a sale. Absolutely worth picking up.
That's the original version of it.
No, that's the sequel. Automata is the sequel that came out in 2017. So
sorry, but it's the original of the sequel, is what I mean.
Yeah. It's not
been what system did that come out on?
PS4.
Oh, so the sequel came out on PS4, and then they remade one for kind of like PS4, PS5.
Yeah. Basically, they remade Nier on PS. They made Nier on PS3. Then they made a sequel on PS4 called Automata, and then because that done way better, I think, than what they expected, they then did this remake. Like basically,
and the remake is it's recent and it's only set for like PS4.
Yeah, it's weird. I researched online. I couldn't find it.
That's as far as they were going with it.
I couldn't find a PS5 copy, and then it was PS4. But I was playing it on my PS5, and it looked great. Like it didn't suffer from like last gen hardware, and it was still, I've only played the first, I don't know, couple of hours. Like I'm not that deep into it, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Do you feel it's a long game? Do you think it's like Final Fantasy? It will be like
Nier Automata. Now, I always, you know me, I'm always saying like, I don't like long stuff. Life's too short. I've got stuff to do. Blah blah blah. Nier Automata is about probably 40 hours long, and there's about 3 different endings, and you need to replay a good couple of hours to see every ending. And I liked that game so much that I did all 4 or 5 endings, whatever there was. Like I played them all. So I think that says quite a lot about how much I like that game, because that takes a lot for me to put that kind of time into something. Really enjoy. So I think this is the same idea. Again, it's an older game, so I assume it's a bit shorter, but it's probably it's a Japanese role playing game. Like they're all insanely long. It kind of comes with the territory, but yeah. But no, worth checking out. I would say maybe don't dive into Replicant, and definitely don't go back to the original Nier. I'd say if you're new, well, this is just because this is how I got into the franchise. I played Automata first and was just mind blown with what was there. I didn't expect it to be what it was, and I was kind of impressed. And then that's what's made me go back and check out this one. So,
and how much is it Resident Evil-y? No shit. Metal Gear Solid. You said that at the start.
I'd say the Metal Gear Solid parallel comes from like there is a part where you pilot a giant mech, and it's kind of like a Metal Gear.
Yeah,
you're fighting another giant mech.
Is it sci-fi, or is it more kind of an anime vibe? I guess
So it starts very Nier Automata, and this game, they're like in Nier Automata, you're a robot from another planet. Like you're a cyborg on a spaceship that gets sent down to an apocalyptic Earth, So as the start is very sci-fi, I'd say, like almost like Stanley Kubrick type sci-fi, like proper.
But then it becomes more anime as it goes. Or
I wouldn't really say it's. I think the reason I enjoyed it was because it wasn't overly that vibe. It was more
anime. Maybe the characters are anime design, but it's more of a kind of general sci-fi.
Yeah. Thing. Also, you play as different characters, and they're all kind of likable in their own way. They all have their own arcs. Like you play as this kind of 2B character who is almost like a robot at the start, and then she starts to kind of have certain allegiances with certain factions, and then you're like, oh, there's a bit of humanity in her, and then you've got this kind of male cyborg companion who's a bit of a pussy at first, who kind of becomes more of a warrior as it goes on, and then you come across this other female cyborg who gets sent down to basically complete the mission that you two aren't doing properly because you've started to take sides with the human conflict, and she's just like at the start just an absolute ruthless killer, and then again she shows more humanity. So like every character has, even though they're cyborgs, they have a lot of humanity, and there's a kind of character arc there, and it's just well written. It's just it's good. It's good.
Wow.
So that's everything we've been playing. There's not that much this week, I guess, but it's fine because that leaves room for us to dive into this topic, because I think this is going to be.
I just have one more. Block Island Noise on Netflix. I saw it come up on the fucking thumbnail a load of times, but it was well reviewed, so I checked it out.
Is it a movie?
So I think I had the vibe, like it just kind of reminded me of Manchester by the Sea. One of the characters is like a bit of a heavy drinker. I don't know, seems to have shit going on. But I think it is kind of like Massachusetts. Kind of, it's an island that you can only get to in the morning. There's only 2 ferries. The ferry there at night and in the morning. That's it. Like it's kind of remote. And there's kind of like 2 leads. So there's a guy who's, I don't know, maybe a little bit like late 20s or something like that, and then the father who seems to be kind of forgetting stuff, and the daughter is investigating lots of just dead fish showing up on the seaside and stuff, but that's also where her family is. Apparently the mother had died years ago, so we don't really see her. We don't see the mother. The mother died years ago, but you can see that the daughter is a bit estranged. She has a young daughter herself, but she's a bit estranged. Maybe hasn't been around as much. And basically, where shit starts happening, it's incredibly low budget. You don't really see not much of a spoiler, but I don't think you really see anything throughout the whole film. But it's kind of simple. But there's some interesting bits too. I just thought there was enough interesting about it that I was like, any of the kind of flaws that it may have had, which doesn't have an awful lot, but the characters are just so well done that you're like, you kind of get to feel for them. Some of the writing's a bit stupid in places. Some of it's very smart. There's something at the very, like, something just comes into it towards the end. You're like, oh, that's quite smart. But even there's a vibe. So there's another sister in it, and she comes back, but she's a bit. I didn't cop that she was a sister first. Your man's like, what the fuck? She coming back? She's never fucking here. The other sister doesn't come into that much, but this other sister is like moved to New York. It has nothing to do with it. Seems to be a very kind of. There's not many jobs going there. A lot of kind of like drinkers and kind of like people who just don't leave the island. It seems like it maybe had been lost in tourism in the last couple of years or something. So there's not much jobs going, but. The sister comes back. The brother character ends up being put in a drunk cell for a night, basically, and the local police guy comes out and goes, "Oh, your sister's here," and like it doesn't has really been said so much. You just kind of get a little vibe of that sister. She's a bit of a bitch in comparison to the other one. Seems to be a bit nicer comparatively. But the cop guy comes in and goes, "Oh, your sister's here." He goes, "Which one?" And like nothing as officially has been said as calling her a bitch, but the cop guy just goes. The nice one. And it was just that little bit of like, you got that vibes lightly, but just when the cop said that, like, who seemed to be quite a nice guy too, it was just very funny. It was just like, it really worked. I was like, oh, these are real people. And like, you can kind of follow them through it. Yeah, it's an interesting watch. It's, again, just a nice experiment and not spending a lot of, like an interesting story with not much budget to it. The end of it mightn't be, it has some flaws, but the good outweighs the bad in it. It's very well. I think it's like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes kind of thing. It's just interesting casting too. All the actors I think do well enough, or if they don't, they have something about them naturally on camera that just like the dad character. He looks a bit weird. The casting works for what the character ends up being in it. He just has a very distinctive look about him that. It's just down to how he looks. He just has a very striking presence visually. But yeah, there's a Black Island Sound. It's about an hour and a half, I think. Just
nice
sci-fi horror. Good watch. Yeah. So yes.
No, we're good to move on. Any last minute things?
Nothing of value.
No, nothing of value.
Comics. I was just going to pick up one issue because I heard it's Spider-Man versus the Avengers and he's got 12 hours to prepare. So he's like fighting all the big hitters. But it's from All Out Avengers number 5, which I've downloaded all of. There's 5 of them out at the moment. I think there might only be 5. And then before this, there was Non-Stop Spider-Man. So they're stories that are told kind of at a tilt when they start. You're coming into in the middle of a story. They have a high focus on action. So it's like done in a really fast speed. So All Out Avengers is one, Spider-Man is one. Basically, I think the idea for it was basically it's like back in the day when you just pick up an issue and it's like the second last issue of a big story. You're like jumped right into it, and then you might. So it's just like I don't know. I haven't read a full issue yet, but just they seem to be just they're action based. They start off in the middle of the story, and then it's just bang, and it's like 5 issues each. So yeah, they seem very interesting. So. That is the end.
Jim Gunn, Jimmy Gunn boy.
Oh, Jimmy Gunn.
Jimmy Gunn. Before we dive into that video and everything that you spoke about in it, we have also had confirmation. Just want to get this out the road first because it's not connected before we go through it. The films set outside of that universe that will still happen and release have been confirmed to be Joker Folie à Deux, which is a sequel to Joker, Batman Part 2, which we already spoke about in 2025, and Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Superman film starring Michael B. Jordan. Those are still going ahead, and they are separate from everything James Gunn's doing. He's branding them as Elseworlds, so same as the comics, they can exist alongside. Now, I want to circle back to this by the end, because what I'm now asking myself, and the reason I might be somewhat disappointed overall with what was announced, although I like the idea of some stuff, I personally find myself more interested in these projects than anything James Gunn announced.
Anything
but
new.
We'll get there. But if you ask me, would I rather see the Joaquin Phoenix sequel, the Batman sequel, or the Michael B. Jordan Black Superman movie? I'd much rather see any of those three before what James Gunn spoke about. But we'll get a sort of consensus on what we're feeling towards the announcement. But after we go through them all,
one by one. We're broken down to TV shows and films.
Yeah, so there's a list of TV shows, a list of films. There's also a graphic that somebody's kind of made which shows us everything coming before and everything coming after. Because he opens a video, to be honest with you, he opens a video a wee bit, I found that a wee bit bullshit, when he was
weird.
When he was like, oh, we are really lucky that these 4 movies are the 4 movies that are already announced before our reset. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, nobody gives a shit about Shazam, Blue Beetle. Like,
I know, like that was like very political.
The only thing about Shazam.
Shazam. Yep.
No, the Zachary
Levi.
Came out with an anti-Pfizer tweet or something saying they were like look, it's Big Pharma, so like they're not exactly
the good guys.
Good guys, but it came out against it, and then like James Gunn was asked to speak about it. It's like I'm not going to change. We're not going to be changing our plans for one tweet for a character set.
Also, that is something that people are wondering about. Apparently, in real life, Zachary Levi and James Gunn are really good friends. So people are kind of saying that he still exists as either as Shazam or as someone else going forward because he's his mate. But will he get recast or not?
Well, they seem to say that or from what he said, like it wasn't really touching that much of the other DC universe. There's no issue with them using it.
So Shazam's happening. No one gives a shit because it's set in the same universe still, and nothing's going to change. Then apparently Aquaman, I think it's pretty much the same. I think it's just going to happen.
I kind of thought he skipped over that the first time I watched it.
It's not going to have much an impact. It's just going to come out and be what it is. Now, the other two.
He said the Flash though.
The other two projects are the interesting ones to me because the Flash, again, like the way he spoke about these 4 movies were really lucky. It felt like, to me, that felt like him reading the script that somebody at Warner Bros. Had written, because at the end of the day, they still need to sell these movies. These movies still, they want them to make money. So that felt very much like them pulling the strings of James Gunn, in my opinion. But then when we got to the part about, so he said how the Flash is going to be a complete reset of the universe. It's going to reset, all the characters that we know going forward. The issue with that is that comes out before Aquaman 2. Aquaman comes out afterwards. So how are you still going to have an Aquaman in the old universe after the Flash? That didn't make sense to me. And then the other thing that didn't make sense, he said something about Blue Beetle being a marvelous character, and as a character, he said Blue Beetle is a marvelous character within the DCU. Now, he's calling his universe the DCU going forward. The DCEU is done. Mm-hmm. This is the DCU. He didn't say Blue Beetle's a good character in the DCEU. He said the DCU. Now, does he just mean DC comics and movies in general, or does he mean his DC universe? Because then I'm like, so is he, as a boy playing Blue Beetle, going to be Blue Beetle in your universe? Because technically that's coming out, that's one of the 4 movies that were already announced. Is Blue Beetle technically the first movie in this new, even though we already knew it was coming, is that going to be the first movie in this new universe? Because that is, the order of the movies that are coming out, it's Shazam in March, but I think it got pushed back, right? Am I right in saying that? Mm-hmm. So it's Shazam, then Flash, then Blue Beetle, then Aquaman. So like Blue Beetle's the first one after Flash, so you would think, right, maybe that will be a part of James Gunn's universe. But then Aquaman's the one that's pure thrown me. I'm like, how can that? Especially if the rumours true of Jason Momoa being Lobo in James Gunn's universe, how is he also going to be Aquaman? Like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think he could be double rolling it. Like,
that'd be weird. Like, what happens if there's a scene where they have to fight?
Weird.
And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's bizarre.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Limited enough. Like, I think the big issue of that is because his Aquaman is so basically just him. That the elements of him that make him good casting for Lobo, seems to be kind of doubled up. It'd be different if he was playing an Aquaman that was more while still being him, looked a little bit more like Captain America, kind of like, or the way Aquaman looks, like, just short blonde hair, clean cut kind of thing.
Yeah.
If he was playing something like that, not to say that he has to, but it'd be, maybe if Aquaman is more still him but closer to the normal Aquaman, and then he just like really goes hell for leather on the Lobo. It's weird. It's still a bit messy, but I think with something like this, it could just stay messy. We'll trying to figure it out now. Like, just, I don't know. They'll do what they're going to do. But
my whole thing is though, right? I feel like this is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's like half in, half out, and I wish. To me, the idea of bringing in a big name like James Gunn to say, right, this is a man to reset our universe. Oh, but he's not really resetting the universe. He's just kind of almost half resetting it. It's like, no, either bring in James Gunn and do your own thing, or just do what you were doing before. Like, this in between bullshit they're doing. It's like, what? I don't know. It's weird. It's throwing me. I don't like it.
I think that's the politics of it, probably. He's probably saying, well, there's these 4 movies that have already been made.
We need to get them out.
But we get them out, but we want to still make like the way he was talking about the Flash, the way he was saying he loves the film. I think that's going to be the key to just terminate.
Yeah, I think I got that vibe as well. I was like, he loves the Flash because it's eradicating everything before, and it's wiping the slate clean for him. Like, that's why he likes it. Like, I got that impression too.
But like even the movie slates that he's announcing, I think is a weird way. But I think the way he was talking about Blue Beetle would be the entry in it, because that might be a good way to do it. Like, if these characters already exist in the world, and Blue Beetle is kind of the young guy joining the world, he sees him through that lens, maybe. And I'm interested to. He really focused on Superman. I didn't realize James Gunn was a pure Superman fanatic, and then I realized he made a movie years ago when it was like a wee boy that had the same powers as Superman.
He wrote Brightburn. He didn't direct it, but I think he wrote Brightburn. Yeah.
So that's.
I think he was a producer on it. It's something to do with Brightburn, which is basically child Superman. But evil.
Yeah.
So evil child Superman.
So
thankfully, I don't know if did I miss anything about Suicide Squad? They're not doing anything to Suicide
Squad.
The
only sort of mention was the first announcement that he made, which to me, I just don't give a shit about Creature Commandos. Like, who are Creature Commandos? It's an animated show.
It's an animated one.
But the only connection is in the drawing that it showed you, like the concept art or whatever, it had, what's his name, Weasel? The wee thing that was in his Suicide Squad movie that didn't say anything, just made noise.
Yeah, the brother.
It was actually played by Sean Gunn. Oh God, that's why he's in it, because it's his brother. It's just nepotism. But he's been brought back. He's been brought back for this, and he also said the interesting thing at this point, I think, about how. And his going forward, the actors that play the characters in live action will also be doing voices for them. And that set Twitter, like, people were like, "Oh, that's messing up voice actors." Can people that are good actors in live action translate to voice acting? It's a very different skill. It brought up a lot of
I think he's a little bit of leeway there with saying usually, so that's what they're aiming for. But if it doesn't suit on particular things, they mightn't be an absolute. But also in that monster team, one of the characters I think is Rick Flag's dad.
Is that who it was? That's no Rick Flag.
Yeah, he's like grey beard.
Spoiler.
Yellow hair.
That's right. If they keep the continuity, I mean, they could redo it again.
That team is usually like a World War II team,
right?
So
like Helen Commandos, sort of.
They can play with that a bit. I had heard people saying, like, well, look, that's the Guardians of the Galaxy, because like people don't really know that comic, so they can do whatever he wants with it.
But also,
and then War is partially the head of the fucking Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker characters are going to appear in that.
Yeah,
so that could be kind of.
So I like just before we move on to Wall, like the Creature Commandos thing. I think for me, it just came across like the fact it's animated. I was like, all right, okay, and then the fact that for me, what I don't like about what Marvel are doing is the Disney Plus shit that you feel like you need to watch to then see the movie. It sounds like they're sort of doing the same thing with this DC universe. Like
same thing.
One of the first major
shows,
things of your universe is an animated TV show. It's like, what a shit place to start a universe. Like, it just doesn't seem like mainstream or like, I don't know, weird. But it just spoke to me like Creature Commandos, for what I hear, are like a even more Z-list team than the Suicide Squad, which are already a Z-list team. And I feel like that's just James Gunn's go-to. Like, because he's done it with Guardians, it's like that's just his blueprint now. Let's just pick a team of guys that nobody's ever heard of, and then I'll just be quirky with it. Like, it just seems such an obvious James Gunn like thing to do. Like, I was just like, oh, right, okay, another obscure team that no one knows about that you're just going to make quirky. Okay, I've not seen that a million times before, but let's go. Like.
Yeah, but it worked for like Guardians of the Galaxy.
It worked once. Suicide Squad lost a lot of money. Like,
it was critically well accepted.
Yeah, I didn't.
I don't think we're like Pod is going to count money on it.
There's one caveat to like Suicide Squad. He's already done it, and I don't know if this is going to be the same kind of the characters in space or anything like that. I don't know if they're going to be the same, like the Weasel and stuff is going to be in the real world. I think you need to take that. Suicide concept.
I think he has said in another interview since that the Creature Commandos are intergalactic, or that his ones are going to be.
Oh right, okay.
I think he said that this is going to be like an intergalactic show. I'm pretty sure.
I was thinking of more as going to be
pretty sure he mentioned it.
It's like aren't they all like they're like.
I'm pretty. I might be wrong, but I'm 90% sure he's mentioned that it's like it is. This show is going to be intergalactic, apparently.
But it's good that the fact that they're touching on magic without actually touching it, because a lot of those characters are magical. Yeah. There's a flame guy, I don't know who the fuck he is, but there's like it's good that there could potentially be constant. I don't think they mentioned it, but they could potentially bring those kind of characters back. Keanu could come back. You never know. like
well, I have wondered that. Like, technically, I know he's Constantine was DC Vertigo, so technically it's not mainstream DC published, but it's still DC adjacent. So if you're going to have, I know that they've got Susanna Constantine and the Dream thing. What's it called? The Sandman.
Yeah, Sandman. Yeah,
but they also announced that Keanu's doing a sequel to the original Constantine movie, because we spoke about it in the podcast. Where does that fit in? Is that Elseworlds, I take it? Like,
I hope. Like, see if it's not Elseworlds, like that will bring in a lot of people's good side if they get Keanu. Like, everybody loves him. So
I don't think they want to. If we're going to do Constantine in the main universe or proper, I don't think it'd be Keanu.
No, I think it would recast that.
Oh, do you not think?
I don't even know if that's really? Anything with DC now that's been announced in the last couple of months is not a guarantee.
That's what I'm wondering. Both the Constantine sequel with Keanu and the Matt Reeves Gotham PD show that he's been speaking about, the Gotham thing. Technically, we know that Batman's Elseworlds, so are they just disconnected but they're still happening, or does this reset affect those the way that, like, when Disney bought Star Wars, it affected a whole bunch of like 1313?
That was kind of been that show had been in question for a while anyway, hadn't it? Because it was there was talk of it being like
an Arkham show,
but I can't remember Jim Gordon show.
He's going to make it an Arkham show.
So the Gotham City PD, I don't think that fully focuses on Gordon. I think he's a big part of it. But
no, it doesn't. It focuses on two other.
He's not the main.
Yeah, it focuses on two other detectives. Yeah. Again, Ed Brubaker comic. Just talk about Ed Brubaker.
Yeah. I'd say anything that's not been announced part of this. Like I know, like, track record of DC, I'd be very surprised if they didn't make this entire slate that or whatever he announced this slate so far. This is, I think, has a lot more. You can take it as an actual announcement as opposed to anything DC was just randomly announcing here and there.
But then,
like, even the Green Lantern show that they announced before, this has nothing to do with what Gunn announced.
As something else that somebody pointed out online, I can't remember who, people were saying, like, Brendan Fraser, it's kind of just as well that he's having all this success and buzz with The Whale, because as DC stuff's like he's been like it's been cursed because Batgirl. He was in the Batgirl movie, which completely got cancelled and basically deleted, and then he was also in Doom Patrol, which has been told that it's the final season because this new slate. So that's two jobs that he had that he now doesn't have, but I guess his Oscar buzz will carry him.
Yeah,
he'll be getting all sorts of office after the wheel. But it's just funny how like Warner Bros. Have kind of screwed him again, but it's all right because he's got this to go.
Yeah, but that creator is doing the. Is he not doing the Green Lantern show now?
Who is?
Or the Authority? The guy who was doing. I think they took on the showrunner from Doom Patrol to do other stuff.
They're working on that.
Or the Authority, or that he's doing.
I can't remember, but that team's working on some of these shows. So the next big announcement was Amanda Waller, which we mentioned earlier. I'm kind of. I mean, I'll look forward to it. I think Viola Davis is a powerhouse. I'll see her act in anything. But the issue that people, maybe not me specifically, but the issue that people are taking online here is he's willing to keep Amanda Waller. He's willing to keep Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. That just proves.
Oh, but not Henry Cavill.
That's what we were saying. It proves that he is okay with keeping some actors from before, which speaks to the fact that Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill maybe just doesn't like their versions of the character. Like, what does that suggest about?
I think that's just age, man. No, like
age.
But like Waller, she's not an action character. Generally, I know. And Viola Davis do Woman King or something, but like that's not the point. She's like Nick Fury. She's not.
Sure.
She's like a kind of dark reflection of Nick Fury. She's not supposed to be an action character. Henry Cavill, and even from more they've announced, like they want their Superman to be 25, and Henry Cavill's, but he'd be 40 this year. Like so, the Batman turn up is kind of like what 35. I think that's
which again is old. That's younger than Affleck is 35. Affleck. As great as he looks for his age, he doesn't look 35.
And he was playing up. He was supposed Batman's supposed to be about 50. Like he's supposed to be older than Affleck. Yeah, I think we're talking. I don't like Batman canonically is like in his prime is 30. Like I think is usually his age. So 35 isn't that big. 35 feels older. I still feel weird.
35 is fine, I think.
Even now, I'm like Batman should in my head because I've got an older Batman should be 40. Like the idea of Batman being younger than me is so weird. Like
the thing, the kind of confirmation about him being 35, I think has helped a bit for me because we'll get to the Brave and the Bold, but originally the idea of starting Batman on his fourth Robin, I was like, are you really going to go with another older Batman right after Affleck? But 35 is young enough that they can still get another 10, 15 years out of whoever they cast. You know what I mean? So that kind of did redeem it almost. I was like, right, okay, 35's
that's why I just think Cavill, like, it's like, and what I thought was interesting enough that you normally don't hear them, even though it's whatever, it's all been approved that he could say this, but like he was saying, like, fucking former management dicked around fucking Henry Cavill, like, and like for him to even say that, look, it's not a huge thing. He probably would have been okay to say that. He's the new head.
He's in charge.
Well, like, I just think it's just got to be an age thing. Obviously, Cavill would have been great. I'd say you never know. I'd say they could. Well, maybe with the Casey Coates, the Black Superman thing, maybe they won't be doing for as many alternate versions. Like they mightn't just say like lead character Superman. They're probably going to limit it. They're not going to be going like, well, here's an Elseworld and this is different Elseworlds.
Yeah,
we at least know of one Elseworld, but like how many Superman Elseworlds will they do?
I think they're just trying to eliminate everything from the Zack Snyder universe. I don't think the Davis, the Waller character was in that film. Maybe they're just killing everything.
She was in David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, which Affleck was in.
Oh, that was it.
That wasn't tied to Zack Snyder. That was, it was just. But that's not. I don't know even if he's a producer.
But they're just kind of going with it's like that in other universes in comics where you see, like, if you're looking at any of, like, take the Marvel Zombies universe. Obviously, the zombies is a big part of the difference in that, but other than that, it's mostly the Marvel universe. Only Captain America is Colonel America, and he's the president. So, like, every other, like, Peter Parker looks the exact same. So, like, I think you pretty much said that, like, only certain things are changing. Like, some things, the idea of multiverses, things can be different, but things can also be the same, and it's because things are the same that it makes the differences look, That's usually how we represented them.
Yeah.
The good thing is though that a lot of people are saying like Damian Wayne is why they're doing Damian Wayne over Dick Grayson. I think it's good because you could potentially have Dick Grayson waved into that story. He's not going to be trained by him, but he's already Nightwing.
We'll get to Raven Bolt because I've got some predictions about Nightwing, but yeah.
The way I was going to say it, like I think other podcasters were talking about, is like he had Damian when he was 20. All he needs is to have 2 or 3 years of one Robin, and then the Robin who dies could have been there for 2 weeks. Like, he doesn't need that much. He doesn't even need to be 30. Like, you could have done all that story with him being 30. Like, really, like, he has plenty of time. And like, I guess I'd be surprised if he has had 3 Robins before the thing, and they'll probably just write that other Robin. Is it Tim Drake?
Yeah, Tim Drake's
that Robin. Yeah. They probably just don't need to have him. Like, comics, it makes sense to have that many Robins over the years, but like they don't need to have him in this universe. Like, they can just do 2. A regular one is Dick, and then Todd.
Speaking of the other sort of major characters, the next movie is kind of the biggest announcement, I guess. But according to James Gunn, he says this is the true start of the DCU as Superman Legacy, and it's our first Superman film. Now, for me, the most interesting part of this was the choice to show Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman as the image, and I don't think that was.
And they've done that a lot with most things in it. Most things are announced with a comic book image.
Yes. So, well, we'll get to the Brave and the Bold, the choice they used for that, but the fact that they used All-Star Superman. And the fact that James Gunn is a proper comic geek, and knows his runs and knows his writers and his artists, I don't think that was an accident. I think James Gunn, I mean, he said that he's the one writing it, he's halfway through the script. I think that he's adapting, essentially he's adapting that. Now, the only sort of snag with that is, I mean, they can take the ideas and they can make it different, I guess. All-Star Superman is very much the end of Superman's story. Like, he's dying at the start of that book. It's like, surely they're not going to introduce a Superman right away? Oh, yeah, this guy's dying. Like,
that might be Henry Cavill. He's dying.
Is it necessary? Like,
it's not. That's what I was going to say. Like, I think they can capture certain elements for that story without, making it that exact.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't think it'll be a one-to-one adaptation. No, I don't think it'll be.
I'm not fully sure I've read it, but I didn't know it was a Death Superman story. Like, I think when I saw certain bits, it's like, oh yeah, he has like Superman
cancer essentially.
Yeah, but like I kind of felt from like his relationship with the supporting characters, it was a death of like retroactively, since people saying he dies at the end of it. His relationship with his supporting characters seems to be in fairly early days. Do you know what I mean? Or did I get that wrong? Does he, in that story, does he not reveal to Lois that he is Superman and stuff?
It is its own, again, like Elseworld stuff, it is its own story. Like, at that time, again, kind of like what's happening with James Gunn here, at the time they wanted to give Superman and Batman fans a comic to read that was outside of continuity, that they could just pick it up and read it. But the reason that All-Star Superman worked and All-Star Batman didn't was because All-Star Superman appealed to both new readers and people that love the character. It's like a distillation of everything that makes Superman what he is. That's All-Star Superman is.
It's kind of
it shows you the death of Jonathan Kent. It shows you, it goes through all the major beats, and it's just like a nice abridged version of Superman through the years. Like,
it's what you need for I think every character needs a definitive story that anyone can pick up.
They do, and it's a shame that All-Star Batman couldn't do the same thing. But anyway,
what was the crack with that again? Was it Frank Miller?
That was a Frank Miller one that
laid over years.
It never really get finished, and Batman also says
that seems to happen a lot more with DC than Marvel, because I've heard it happen a couple of times with DC books, and I don't think it really happens as much with Marvel.
That's the one where he says he's a goddamn Batman. That's that book.
Was it like the Button and the fucking whatever, the Watchmen things, like they were spread out over a while? I know there was a Marvel, there was an Ultimate Wolverine versus Ultimate Hulk book that was spread. Was it fucking your man from Lost who wrote it? And the leftovers.
Damon Lindelof?
I think it could have been Damon Lindelof, and it was like 5 issues or something, and the first 2 issues, like at one point Hulk rips Wolverine apart because it's the Ultimate Universe, so like adamantium isn't unbreakable there, and he just like fucking throws them either side of a mountain. And but then it was a couple of years, I think, before they finished it. But yeah, I think that seems to happen a bit more with DC stuff, does it? Do you think? No?
DC is just crazy.
Yeah, DC's. Let's not go into organizational logic.
Maybe it's more prominent. It happens in more prominent stories. I'm sure there's plenty of Marvel stories that do things.
Do you have any suggestions over casting for Superman? If we're going with a 25-year-old Superman as an MD, you'd like to see
any actor would fit that because he's probably on some fucking teen drama.
I think they'll probably get somebody that's unknown. I think they'll get somebody that's unknown for, but both of them, Batman and Superman.
I think so, yeah.
Because like, what was like when? Oh my god, what's his name?
I don't even know that many actors at that age.
What was who was the Batman?
Michael Keaton.
My god, Michael Keaton was relatively kind of just known for comedy and stuff like that before then. So I think they'll get somebody that.
Well, I guess Pattinson was an outside decision. Like that wasn't an obvious decision, and it worked. So.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think with his track record of films, like what's his face, Heath Ledger, like he hadn't done an awful lot of drama before then. I think he'd only done like Brokeback Mountain, and I think maybe like 2 or 3 others. And other than that, he was kind of like, for him, it seems to be more. Well, I guess kind of along the lines of Patterson, but Patterson has about 10 highly critically acclaimed films behind him now already.
Yeah,
and that's in the last less than.
But I still wouldn't have looked. Even watching Good Time, I wouldn't watch Good Time and go, "There's Batman." Do you know what I mean? It's just not an obvious pick. It's someone that still had to sort of transform into the role. You know.
See, I think it's interesting just because for anyone really for the last 20 years they've grown up with these characters, so to hear of a cast, and even if they're saying, look, it's an earlier version of the character, I still can't, I'm 35 now. In my head, Batman now has to be 50 because I've grown up with him. That's just the way my brain works. I can't live in a world where both Spider-Man can fit into a bit more because he's often depicted as a younger character.
Or whatever. Yeah.
But even then, like, I still am a little bit like, in my head, in my mind space, Parker is still like, he's where he is in the comics now, which obviously that's retroactively blah blah blah. But I still consider him. I'd have to think Peter Parker's my age now. He's just going to grow. I'm not going to accept. You can have the younger Spider-Man, but Peter Parker has to be at least he's my contemporary or he's older. But like, yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. Batman seems worse though, because Batman, when you get to an age when you're older than Batman, it's just like, oh god.
Do you think they're going down the more kind of Christopher Reeves costume? Like, I think that's like a thing.
I think they'll go. Well, he put up that thing in Twitter, trunks or no trunks. I think James Gunn, I think he's going to go trunks, and I think he's going to have the yellow and the S, the way that Cavill did. Yeah. I think they're going
Superman Superman needs that iconic. Like, he's a character that can stand up to it. Just make him.
They're also going to, like Chris said, they're going to want to distance himself from everything Zack Snyder did, and his whole thing was like monochromatic. They're going to want to go colourful just to make it different. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know? I would even be happy with a Batman that's got a blue cape.
They might do it.
I think that's what people seem to be saying. There's going to be like the blue.
They could do it.
This is where we need Batman in the blue.
This is probably
and then it could work.
I don't think there's an awful lot really to say in Superman because we don't know who they could cast really. Because I don't think even we know actors. Like a lot of these, like who do we know is 25? It could be Superman as well.
Do you think they will cast a nobodies, or did you just have ideas of they could potentially?
I wouldn't know actors in that age.
The only thing I've seen thrown around, and I don't know how much truth there is to it, but I've heard Tom Holland getting thrown around, which is just insane.
Oh
like,
no!
Let's make Tom Holland. Let's make Tom Holland Spider-Man, Nathan Drake, and Superman. Why not? Like, no. It's like you might as well make it. You might as well put him at Star Wars at this point.
He's like it's funny.
Yes, tiny.
I think I was telling you that like my YouTube shorts is all clips of Zendaya, who I just think is the best now. Like she just seems so cool. But there's one where herself and Tom were sitting on a couch and they were being interviewed about the different height difference between Peter and think she was like, well, no one ever really asked me my height when I got cast. Like, they probably might have known, but it was never seemed to be big of a thing. But then when they actually got put together and they were sitting beside each other, and like, it's just from the knee because they say it, but you can kind of see it too. Their shoulders are in the exact same place.
Yeah.
They're sitting back the same way, but she's like, yeah, you just got longer calves. And that's what puts her up above him, like. But But he's too small to be Spider. He can't fuck off, but you can't be Spider-Man and Superman. Like
it's like let's just make Chris Pratt every voiceover and let's just make Tom Holland every action star. It's like where do you draw the line? Do you know what I mean?
They can get someone who's like he's a bit part in some show now that you don't even notice or you haven't even watched yet. And it's still like it's not going to come out for 2 years, so like I guess will the actor actually be like 25? Well, what I like about that too is that they kind of kept it short and they seem to have a pretty quick production line laid out because like that's 2 years.
Well, that's 2025, which will also be the same year, right, as Kang Dynasty. So So I don't think that's a coincidence. Do you know what I mean? Designed to kick off your Superman franchise the same year as Marvel are doing an Avengers movie. I think
they're going to be months apart. I'd say.
But the conversation on our podcast that we're going to be talking about both at the same time. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's a mistake. I think there's definitely a wee bit of
they're trying to wave the competition
of like competition sells tickets, man. It does. Like it's the same with constant. Like that's why PlayStation, Xbox do it. Like,
but they have a whole different. It's like a solo film, and it's not like it'd be different if it was like an Infinite Crisis or whatever. Like Marvel, we're going to be bringing that film out anyway. They're going to have to start putting out the films. I'd say they're going to keep that in a completely different sector. Like Marvel's taking August, they're going to take like fucking July.
They won't clash head to head at the box office. But I mean, you had what year was it? 2015 that Civil War came out. 2016, I think. You had both Batman v Superman and Civil War that year, and again that didn't come out
time though. I think no,
because Civil War was like May and Batman v Superman was March, so it was like a couple of months.
Batman ended up moving. Oh right, because I think it was originally Doctor Strange was in that slot, and they swapped it for Captain America. Then they revealed it was Civil War after the fact, and that pushed their hand to make Civil War.
Although they won't outright say it, they want people on Twitter to do that back and forward stuff like 100%. It sells tickets. Next project is Green Lantern. Well, it's called Lanterns.
TV show.
TV show.
That's the thing that's been needed for a wee while.
Now, on paper, I would be like, Green Lantern, I don't really care. But the way that he described it, I thought this sounded appealing, like a kind of space version of True Detective. And then you're going to have folk like Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner. You're going to have all the different Lanterns interacting. I think that could be interesting. I'm into that.
Well, I think someone said that as like normally in Green Lantern they do team two of them up like
and a sort of detective story set in space sounds interesting. Like I'm up for that.
Well, he said it's going to keep it very terrestrial. So does that mean like if someone was saying that's going to be on one planet? Or
no, he did say that they are basically the guardians of Precinct Earth. So it's going to be I think it's going to be set on and around our solar system. I don't think it's going to go, that.
Oh, it's not going to touch
that Interstellar. I think it will just be, in the sort of local area of space.
Yeah.
But no, that sounds cool. And then this was probably the one that I was most buzzing for so far, is the decision to adapt to Authority into a film.
Yeah.
The Authority is unfortunately a comic written by Warren Ellis, who turned out to be a bit of a monster.
Brubaker did some. I think too, or Brubaker.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, but
he was a writer. Yeah.
The Authority was created by Warren Ellis, so it is unescapably tied to him, unfortunately. But it's a solid story. Like, I've always said that. Say what you want about Warren Ellis, he might be a creep, but he knows how to write a good superhero story. The Authority is like this group of kind of jaded characters, which again, it suits James Gunn, and I'm way more hyped about this than I am about the Creature Commandos thing, because this is a team that I think can be more. I feel like James Gunn with the Guardians has obviously had to restrain himself quite a lot, because if you watch his other stuff, it's all very adult. There's even Suicide Squad, there's certain jokes, there's certain violent scenes, there's just certain references that Marvel would never let him get away with. Whereas I think the Authority is quite an adult story, kind of like, I guess, like Watchmen in a way, where you can tackle heavier themes and kind of slightly darker territory.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like when it came out, it was kind of like a parody of the Justice League, because Midnighter and Apollo, who are the Batman and Superman analogs, who were a gay couple.
And again, it wasn't originally published under DC. It was published. I'm sure it was published under Wildstorm, No, I think it was under Wildstorm, which again was another subsidiary of DC. It was basically their Ultimate Universe, I guess. Like, it was another arm of theirs.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting.
I really liked it. It kind of fit a similar headspace. But there was another team around the same. I think maybe it was the Boys a little bit. There's X amount of different characters that kind of fill that headspace of like, we're kind of Justice League, but we're dark, and like, you know, the Boys has it with the Seven, and
it all goes back.
It was definitely Planetary. Is that a different one then?
Yeah, Planetary is different. Yeah, Planetary
is that another Justice League kind of thing? No, maybe just the story felt similarly sci-fi. It was very. I just remember, and then like Doom Patrol even has a touch of that, where there's a guy who has the power of cities, isn't it? Or is that does a city join the team or something? And it's like, because in Doom Patrol they have Danny the Street, which is like an analogy for transgender, I think, but it's like someone who identifies as a street, or a street that identifies as a person. And like, you can change, you can just show up in different but then like one of the guys like has very kind of interesting powers where he has the power of like, you can basically take powers from the city. So he does something with like the railroad tracks that he can connect into them, and he's hyper aware of stuff, and then his feet can help him travel on this. I don't know, very kind of like off kilter powers, kind of like stuff you'd see in Legion, and Doom Patrol. So it's just like kind of quirky, and then I guess then.
Sorry, I'm just double checking here the difference. So yeah, the Authority and Planetary are both intergalactic teams. They're both under the Wildstorm imprint, and they're both created by Warren Ellis. So they are similar, but it sounds like
I remember them feeling very similar to me, but hearing Authority, I was getting confused.
The Authority went from writer to writer more. Like Volume 1 is the only volume written by Warren Ellis, and then it was Mark Miller along with Frank Quitely, and then it was Morrison, Grant Morrison. After that, Brubaker's not here. I don't know if Brubaker worked on like a spin-off or something, but he's not listed in the main continuity of writers.
In the main,
but yeah, Wildstorm doing an Authority adaptation sounds interesting. Again, it's something that there is fans of it, you know, and like I've read it and enjoyed it, but it's obscure enough that they can change things that you can't change about Superman and Batman. You can change about the Authority, and no one's going to really bat an eyelid. Do you know what I mean? So there's more leeway, I think, creative wise for what they can do with it. But,
I think I heard someone. What was that Superman story? I think I have the animated version of it there somewhere. The one where some new super team is introduced, and one of them is going around with a Union Jack. I don't know. Was one of them maybe in the Authority Planetary? But basically, this team shows up and they're a little bit more ruthless, and they basically try and like, people seem to like them because they're, you know, killing people or whatever. And then like Superman comes back, and then like he leads the main guy to believe that he's just fucking slaughtering the whole team, like, and then he like goes, "Oh no, just be sounder," or whatever. But I think a man's called Manchester who's wearing the Union Jack. But someone was saying, they could use Planetary maybe a bit like that, where Superman comes in, tries to help them, and like go, this is the way. And it's a good palate cleanser. Like at first I was like, you're introducing a parody Justice League before the Justice League in your universe, but that's probably a good palate cleanser, because any kind of like you know, looking at one to see the other, you're going from the darker kind of Justice League from the Zack Snyder stuff to the Authority, and then the new Justice League comes in. But then some guys were saying was like, actually, do you know, this could be a good project for Zack Snyder. It actually suits his work. No. A bit like, because they're like, you know, he'd be like, I think it was the man Sal from Comic Pop, he was saying like, or there was a guest he had on one of his shows, we was saying Zack Snyder would work, but only if Zack Snyder was being Zack Snyder and not being unaware that he was. The enjoyment comes out of it in an ironic way of looking at his work, that it would suit it actually, because it's dark, it's gritty, and blah blah blah, and then working good contrast. And I guess it'd be interesting too to see the things that are in the wider story. So I think they said the Lanterns is going to look at they're going to have a mystery that's tied to the wider story of this. So they're calling the chapters. This isn't even the full chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters. But Monsters and Gods or Gods and Monsters, could that mean New Gods basically being the overarching thing? And something different about, like, James Gunn said this, Marvel wasn't planned from the start. But also they have like a think tank of writers and creators working on this. So like Tom King is in there. Someone else I heard mentioned is pretty big. But they're like plotting this out. Like they're getting them probably the best of the best, who might even like end up working on it, but they help plot out the whole 10 or 8 years.
That's all well and good, but they did say that same thing last time with what's his name that did the Batman Year One. He was involved with Zack Snyder's vision. Jeff Johns, yeah, and there was other writers. But Scott Snyder not involved as well with some of the planning at some point. Like a few DC writers,
I think at the very beginning,
a few DC writers were also involved. So I don't know. I hear that and I'm like, you said before, and look what happens. Like,
but I don't think you can compare what they're doing here to any of the DC announcements that happened before, because they don't have the same creative. Like, it's the same way like Marvel were also making announcements, but they had a strong creative team behind them. I think this is the first time I've seen DC announcements where like I have at least a feeling that these projects that have been announced to be made. Yeah. Like, I think it's and it's not like, even so, if Jeff Johns is doing that, Jeff Johns wasn't supposed to be the best either, and he's also working from the blueprint that Zack Snyder came from. This seems to be like it's a lot of people in it.
I hope so. I hope they've been wise enough to rethink it. You know what I mean? I'd like to think that, but I just feel like I've heard it before. I don't know. Maybe I'm just critical. But the next project sounds interesting. Paradise Lost, which is the only reference to Wonder Woman in this whole lineup.
Not necessarily even have her.
Apparently, it's am I right in saying it's a prequel to Wonder Woman story?
It's a prequel,
but it's about Themyscira and what goes on the island when there's battles and stuff, and he compared it to Game of Thrones in the video.
And Game of Thrones owned by Warner Brothers.
Yes. Well, it's HBO. They all own HBO. True Detective.
I just wasn't sure with some of the things he was saying. I was like, do you actually own them?
They're all shows on HBO Max, put it that way. So yeah, Paradise Lost. I think the way this, if you're going to do it, you need to make it like Game of Thrones. You know, have a lot of strong violence. Make it like, another Zack Snyder reference would be 300, but that sort of idea. Like, I think you need to go proper kind of gory and adult with it. But I guess they haven't said they're opposed to that with this lineup that's coming, especially with James Gunn at the helm. But I think you can't really pussy out and go PG-13. I think if you're going to do a show about an island of warriors going into battles, that it has to be like the Northman. Do you know what I mean? It has to be like.
Oh, it has to be that.
Or I think potentially they could do this with the prequel, but I'd say you'd wonder would they continue doing that with Wonder Woman. So, like,
I don't think they have to match Wonder Woman to this. I think they can do Wonder Woman more mainstream, well doing this. Just have it.
Yeah, like, look, I don't know much about these clay people, but or was it just Wonder Woman who's made of clay?
I can't remember if it was just her, but yeah, that's right. They made her out of clay.
But look,
Zeus made her out of clay. Is that not?
I can't remember.
Zeus.
Someone then in like Greek mythology must have been made of clay.
Yeah, must be taken from somewhere.
And then she was like a whole thing for.
See, a lot of this. This is what making me think that actually the Grant Morrison story is going to happen. Superman will actually probably die.
Really?
Because I actually think that they're going to make that bold move.
Why?
Because like either he'll introduce the whole world, and then he'll be left, like he'll die, and then he might come back as like the black suit Superman.
I think
because they introduce
that's I don't think.
I know, but later down the line they have in this timeline they've got the Supergirl.
Yeah.
So she could potentially take up.
Don't see it. I don't see it.
They're not starting off the universe by getting rid of one of the main characters.
I think. Well, maybe I'm just giving him too much credit, but surely they've seen Zack Snyder killing off Superman and doing the Death and Return of Superman thing 2 movies in.
Yeah.
Surely they saw him doing it 2 movies in and went, Jesus Christ, he done that too early. Let's not do that. I mean, let's have the Justice League before we kill Superman.
They have an 8-year plan, but they're probably looking at about 10 to 15 years, really. That's what I'm saying.
That was my biggest issue. Was when Snyder did it, was that like Superman's not even been in the Justice League yet, and he's already died. Like that's just no, that's terrible writing. Talking of Grant Morrison, though, Batman: The Brave and the Bold was shown. James Gunn confirmed that Damian was going to be the Robin, which again makes sense for James Gunn because Damian's like the most kind of like the most kind of kids and like violent Robin out of them all. So it just makes sense.
He's got a samurai sword.
And then, but again, we'll talk about the samurai sword. The image they show is him swinging the sword from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's run on the character. So again, it looks like it's pulling from Morrison's work.
Fucking Grant Morrison universe. So
I mean, that was a solid period in Batman when Morrison worked on it. So yeah, I'm up for.
That's great. A Scotsman on the creative trail. There you go. Is Grant Morrison Scottish?
Yeah.
I fucking yeah. You go. Thank God.
Yeah, like I guess this is kind of like probably as you were saying, perfect time to bring Batman in the blue. I do like. Not that I'm that familiar with DC, but I just know this is Batman when he's being comic booky, is showing him in a blue costume.
What I think is interesting though, because of the timing of all this, I feel like whoever gets cast as this version of Batman is going to have to live up to Robert Pattinson's Batman, which is odd considering Robert Pattinson is now not the main Batman, but now the main Batman might feel like I'm worried that this Batman's going to feel like the side Batman. Does that make sense? Like, and that shouldn't. If this is the main universe, this should feel like the main Batman. And just, I sort of feel like because we've already established Pattinson, he's Batman, and this guy is just going to be like, oh, he's the other Batman. I don't know. I wonder. Depends who the cast. Depends how it's pulled off. Whatever. But I don't know.
But you look at any kind of variance in like watching the animated Batman, watching fucking playing him in the games, reading comics from this year, DC whatever rebirth or whatever. There's always different versions.
I just feel there's extra pressure on this because if he's not as good as Batman, or if the movie itself isn't as good as the Batman, it's going to get. This is all right, but I mean, this is maybe the main one, and it's not even as good as the side one. Like, or at least I don't know. That's the perspective I would take. I think I'm expecting this to be both better as a movie and the character to be more. I don't know, just more engaging than the other version, but I don't know.
We'll see. I think based on.
Yeah.
Oh no, go. I was just based on what he's doing. I think he's not going to be the depressed Batman that they're getting with Pattinson. I think he's going to be more
fun-loving Batman,
more Adam West. He's going to be more stand-up. You know what I mean?
Like you've Ron Swanson in fucking The Last of Us, and then you've Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec. Not exactly, but like, he can be more of in the DCU. We can be more of kind of the growth on like just remake the cartoon. Like that's all you have to do.
Yeah. See if they do the animated series. See if they act him like that. He's like dead morally strong, and he's more of a my parents are dead. Like he's more like he's put that in the side, and he's more like I need to take up this kid now.
Well, you can still have him. He doesn't have to be like clearly having fucking social communication issues with people. Like
Bat Dad.
Do you know what I want him? I want him to be what Ben Affleck was kind of good at, like the Bruce Wayne acting. Like he was. I want him to have that.
Well, that's the area. That's the area that they can slip into here and make this Batman a bit more well-rounded. Because Robert Pattinson's Batman seems like he's too young to have developed his Bruce Wayne side yet. So I guess that's a void that they can certainly fill. I think. Yeah.
Like Robert Pattinson is probably 35, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Round about there. But I also think I get the feeling he's probably playing down a bit. Yeah, I think he's playing down a wee bit. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's.
Do you think they're going to go with like an art style? Do you think they're going to have like an Art Deco kind of art style?
If they go with Frank Quitely's art style, then that would be cool. Because I like colour. I think they're trying to distance themselves from Snyder's art style. So I think they're going to go poppy, colourful. Which, if you look at that run, it is. It looks like that's what I really liked about that period of Batman when Morrison and Frank Quitely's also Scottish, by the way. When those two worked on Batman, it was it looked like almost like Adam West Batman, but it was super dark, messed up stuff that they were dealing with. Like the pig serial killer guy, can't remember his name, but him the one mask of a serial killer.
The colors
that was
in
here, but the color, it looked like the 60s Batman.
Did it have a bit of like a James Bondy kind of vibe to it? International Man of Mystery kind of.
Maybe, I don't remember. It's been a few years. I just remember the Batmobile looking ridiculous, being that it's like the wee tiny weird Batmobile in that series.
Oh, I that's one of the things that they need to get something like. I want like a really old. I want the Art Deco Batmobile from fucking anime series. The big like the unrealistic car. It's a big long fucking.
I might be wrong, right? I might be wrong because James Gunn is clearly a guy who spends a lot of time on the internet, so maybe he does know that the whole Art Deco animated series thing is what people are looking for. But I don't expect, just from the sort of the image that he showed and the way that, from James Gunn's past work, I don't think this adaptation is going to be that sort of like the animated series.
Yeah,
I think that's
they can
good part
for
what they're doing.
that too. But they could have a city that like, not that I know American cities that well, but like there's certain parts of America, like even thinking of the skyline in New York and stuff. There's certain parts that do just have like, because they were built fucking way back when. So like, you can kind of embellish like. The Batman was more on the gothic side and like in a natural form because he obviously is back to fucking Scotland again. More use all your churches. The DC. I've actually just been watching a lot of like I got onto a YouTube thread of just fucking Scottish people. I think it's an Instagram page where it's all just Scottish people being funny. It's a guy walking out with a shop and like, "Good morning, Glasgow!" And then, like, within about 2 seconds, "Morning!"
Morning.
And I've noticed, because this is back to other episodes, you said the night or the morrow instead of saying tonight. Yeah, so that's kind of.
I'm getting it right. I'm getting it tomorrow.
But yeah, so the Batman use actual Glasgow, so it's more of the gothic side, but that kind of 1950s or 19 whatever the fuck you go back, the American kind of Art Deco kind of thing. They can bring that in and just have that be a style of their Gotham.
Yeah.
Even like Alex Ross? Like he done really.
Yeah,
like,
his is a highlight.
I hope they go. I hope they go like that. Like not like pure armored suits. Like actually
the cloth.
The
cloth look.
Yeah, I think they could go that.
The only thing about that is like it's not practical. Like if Batman's been doing it for 15 years, he'd be dead by now if he was wearing a cloth suit. You know what I mean? Like,
and he's going to be fighting messy humans, whereas you might see fucking the other Batman fight one and the third one where it's a little bit stronger somehow.
I mean, it worked for Adam West, okay?
Yeah, but it's funny because like our kind of a basic impression of the Batman was that it was like the Nolan stuff, but it was a bit pulpier. Not exactly comic book, but getting there. More like a pulp comic book. But this has to really be the Batman who's going to be fighting superpowered people.
Yeah, that's going to be comic book Batman, I think. Yeah.
Kind of scene, yeah. And like, we're hitting the ground running with him. Like, he's 35, but that's not that old for Batman, I don't think.
Yeah. And at least we're not doing Origins again. I'm glad we're not doing
Origins. We need someone, like, that's, from now on, we need to be seeing that in our superhero films, introducing people fucking...
on the already established.
Established, and as you would read them in most comic books,
as
opposed to one where they're way at the age, or we don't need Origins anymore.
Booster Gold.
And I guess it'd be interesting to see where he puts them into. Give him a lot more. Well, like where do you want to go? You maybe want to be a little bit more adventurous with the action, where it's not as grim and but like I don't know. There's an element to it, like. I think any film could have the same kind of action to a degree, but it's just how you play everything else around it. Like the performances are toned a certain way. So, like, I'm always one for just I like really good action. It's like, because I'm interested. Like when you're watching a fight scene, I like to see I've talked about it many times, but like an actual story within the action and like just fucking interesting to watch on its own merit. But I guess. There's times where you want to embellish that, and I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, say, a bad example of that would be the Black Widow film, where they had some good action, but then just went way over the top. A lot of the Marvel stuff, like if you can compare, my housemate just watched Wakanda Forever. He just really didn't like it. He thought it was grand, but not. He thought they could do a lot better with it. But we started talking about the action in the first Black Panther. You have the two ritual fights. There's two of my favorite fights in all of the MCU, and then it ends with shitty CGI, and then Shang-Chi, great bus fight scenes, some other fight scenes, and then just CGI at the end. Yeah. I don't know. I think we need a superhero. Like Daredevil did it quite well. Really good actor.
What's his name? Him that does the raid in Gangs of London. Garth. What's his name? It's Gareth Evans and Garth Edwards, right? Gareth Edwards is a Godzilla guy.
That's the thing that kind of confused me because they're not Asian themselves.
No, he's Welsh. Garth Evans is Welsh. He just made a movie in Indonesia, but he's Welsh.
Yeah, and he also just got in with someone who knew the fucking really good fighting team.
Get him to do a Batman, a DC, any superhero movie. Actually, I'd love to see him do. But anyway,
any superhero that's kind of street level that I want to see. Like even Moon Knight didn't even go anywhere near that.
Yeah,
that's what he should be.
No, again, it was CGI nonsense at the end. But anyway,
he can fly and
Booster Gold is the next announcement.
TV show.
Shit.
TV show. Booster Gold to me is a character I've always kind of associated with Blue Beetle, which is why I think this is interesting. They two are always, well, not always. They're often paired up. Yeah. But Booster Gold is kind of like the unaware douchebag. You know, he's kind of like he's a loser for the future that comes back and
uses technology to make himself super.
I think if you got like maybe like I don't think he would do it, but like a Chris Evans type to do it. I think he'd be quite funny. But I guess that's kind of repeating like what he was in Captain America when he was younger. Like see the part in Endgame when he's fighting himself when he's young and he's like cringing at how like I will stop you like he used to be. I feel like he's kind of already. Because we've already seen Chris Evans do that thing, whereas Booster Gold, I think it could be, I don't know, it could be done with a fresh take.
But is he not more of a kind of like a sleaze bag?
He's but he's also kind of like Deadpool. He's a bit Deadpool. He's a bit, I don't know.
I'm thinking to be someone like fucking either Will Arnett could play or didn't Joel, the guy from Community, make? Didn't he play him in like Stargirl, or is that something else?
I don't know.
There was a show there, or was it?
I don't watch
the CW. There was a Stargirl show there. It might have had Booster Gold in it, and he may have been played by either Donald Faison from Scrubs.
Oh, really?
Or Joel McKinnon played, or maybe there's Stargirl as a legacy character, so Joel McKinnon played the older version, or the male, who passed on the powers to her or something.
Is Joel McKinnon not Rick Flag? Is that not Joe McKinnon?
Yeah, I'm getting that name wrong. Joe McHale.
Joe McHale, right, okay.
Yeah. No, it's that I might mix up the characters, but kind of like a bit of a douchebag character who's, I don't know.
It's a live action show. I'm sure it will have like a bunch of kind of comedy in it because it's James Gunn. I also did wonder that. Do you think that's why they've brought in James Gunn? Because the MCU is known for its comedy, and DC's always kind of lacked that sense of humour. Do you think that's something to do with the fact that they've put him in charge to try and tonally skew it a certain way? Because
is he writing Booster Gold?
I honestly don't know. The only ones that I know he's writing are Superman Legacy and is he even writing the Brave? I don't even know if he's writing the Brave and the Bold.
No, I think he's writing.
Waller. I think he wrote Creature Commandos. He's written all that. I think he's helping write. Waller, I think he's helping write Waller, and then he's writing Superman. So yeah, but they're just the first three. So maybe he's just doing it in order. Like maybe he's just writing as he goes. I don't know. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know.
Well, he has a certain bit of that Marvel humor to him, but generally maybe with a bit more edge or whatever. But I think of really the first Guardians, like. Yes, they used the Power Stone or whatever, but like it is comedy that kind of wins.
It's a comedy.
It distracts them with humor, and that's like a joke is the kind of the fucking.
And that's. I don't listen. I like a good comedy. I don't want everything to take itself deadly seriously, but I also don't want to see another dance off. Like I'm so sick of that bullshit James Gunn thing.
Yeah, but like that's a very particular point. I don't think that I thought that novel at the time that he literally used like it was a comedy within the characters used something humorous to distract the villain.
I'm just sick. I feel like James Gunn he kind of done it in Suicide Squad with the big starfish as well. Like I don't know, just
yeah. There's some bits that
some things that I just roll my eyes at.
there's stuff that you trust him with. Like he's obviously a big comic fan. I hope he's not writing everything, because that will just get like control freak, and then it will end up everything's the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I think we're going to start seeing, because we well, what was the last thing then? Is Swamp Thing the last thing then?
Yeah, Swamp Thing's the last thing.
No, there's
if he's smart,
Supergirl.
If he's smart, he'll bring people. He will bring in other writers. Yeah, we'll get through these. We'll get through these last two announcements before we get into this kind of breakdown of it. But yeah, Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow. Apparently, what I kind of liked about this is it generally sounds. Well, the way he made it sound, this might be nonsense, but the way he made it sound was that he was reading that comic run called Women of Tomorrow, and he was like, "I want to make this into live action," so he's put it on the slate.
It's the last like 2 or 3 years.
So like, that's the way he makes it sound. That to me is exciting. Like if James Gunn has really just been sitting reading a comic and went, "This is brilliant. I'm adapting this." Like that the idea of something being that kind of like exciting to him is exciting to me, but whether or not that's just kind of him bullshitting and it's been planned out by all the suits, who knows? But the way he makes it sounds more like on a whim that he's just decided, oh, let's put this on the slate. So I don't know. Then the last thing again is one of the other few ones that really piqued my interest was Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
As long as they go proper dark horror, like I don't want to see any comedy in Swamp Thing. I think it has to be proper like Alan Moore Swamp Thing, like the monster that blood, gore, kind of like Werewolf by Night, kind of what Marvel did with that. Like I want to see that done with Swamp Thing. James Mangold apparently has been interested. He posted a photo on Twitter of a comics of Swamp Thing, and then there's been other rumors that he's
announced that
he's definitely doing it.
Did he not tweet that and James Gunn retweeted it?
I read that he was circling the script. He was circling the project, but I didn't know if he was properly on board or not.
But that was a big hint for me. It was like, I think if he's bringing him in, I don't know, it was through an online thing. I got to like a writing masterclass or whatever with the writer of that. I can't remember his fucking name now. It could be Chris something. But he wrote it with Mangold. So Mangold did the Wolverine.
Yes.
And the writer was approached then for Logan, and then he came back to Mangold. Like, you want to do this again? He's like, no, should they blocked us so much, because the way the writer himself looked at Logan or Wolverine is there's a really good film there, and then there's a film that the studio fucking
butchered.
Well, I think they kind of thought it was all. They didn't think it was like. Mangold seemed to dislike it all right, but they were kind of like, look, we'll give it one more go. They seem to be very happy with Logan. But I think Gunn, and even Gunn, talking about the Zachary Levi thing about him saying a tweet or whatever, the funniest thing about this all is that Gunn got cancelled, and that's how he's here now. But like, oh fuck, I was so pattern out there. So Gunn, so he's bringing, and he also seems to be fairly pally with other people. Like I heard something about him saying, because I'm back at the very early Weekly Planet now, and I think they were talking about, it was just when the Edgar Wright thing came out that he got fucking left Ant-Man, and he'd been working with them for years. Apparently they were going back behind the scenes, changing things that he'd already done and setups. And anyway, but Gunn said at the time, from knowing both of them, he's like, it's like a couple that you love both of them, but they shouldn't be together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So is he now going to be like,
bring in Edgar Wright
for Edgar Wright and get him in a new sexy couple? I think Edgar Wright could come back. I think he's going to do a roundabout list, pick people who maybe had worked with stuff that he knows are better and have made better stuff, and go, here, fucking this is.
I hope so, because
directors, we want this to be as comfortable as possible for directors. Come in. I think that's what I think he's going to be doing.
I would say the biggest benefit of him approaching this after all the success of Marvel is that he can learn from Marvel's mistakes, and
he can look at every single.
He can use the benefit of hindsight. So that is what I hope is happening. Yeah, I hope that sort of thing's happening.
Also, the Russos in.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
they're kind of finished with Marvel now too.
I like Mangold and I like Edgar Wright, so I'd love to see either of them take on one of these projects. So I just...
What about Sam Raimi? Do you think Sam Raimi would come in?
He said this last week, and I said, "Fuck off."
I love Sam Raimi, man. I think he would.
I'd see a Sam Raimi Swamp Thing movie. If Mangold doesn't do it,
a very disturbing.
Sam Raimi does Swamp Thing, like totally work.
So I think the Sal from comic book guy was kind of saying, let's not do Alan Moore. Let's do something else that's maybe a little bit lighter or something.
I want to see it dark, man.
You maybe have to think of like DC too, like being the cliche joke of, oh, it's so dark, it's a DC movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
They might want to kind of keep away from that and keep, like, one thing I noticed about everything that was announced, the amount of imagery, and not only that, direct reference to comic book runs. This seems to be what
he's looking for.
As opposed to Marvel making their own stories that lightly adapt other stories.
Mm-hmm.
You have so many comics there. Like, with the Fox films, I was like, just the Last Stand, they had like the Cure story mixed in with the Phoenix story.
Yeah.
And then they just keep making, whatever. Do it on specific comic runs. Like, and especially when you see The Last of Us now. I think The Last of Us, as far as an adaptation for anything, that'll be used as kind of a blueprint by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Recreates the stuff that people like. It's there. It works. We know it works. Do it well. You're introducing us to a new audience. Have slight flourishes here and there so it's interesting for people who've already watched it. And then do whatever the fuck you like in any space you can find it to make it interesting for everybody. And maybe bring in elements that the game didn't fully have there for you to kind of latch onto. So, like, if he's bringing in other people, like, I kind of thought it was a bit weird when he even said he was writing 3 of the things. Like, Superman, I think it's interesting to put him on something like Superman because, look, he's done Brightburn, he's done darker stuff, he's done kind of more R-rated stuff. I think that's maybe an interesting way to bring him to something that's more mainstream.
I actually think, as James, I think James Gunn that's his favourite superhero, Superman, as well. So he'll probably want to make sure I'm sure it is. I remember him saying something that he loves.
And I also think, again, just to get away from the Snyder stuff, and because of the image of All-Star Superman, I think this Superman's just going to be like Paragon of Light. Like, he's just going to be justice in a suit. Like, he's going to be, that's the version I'm expecting. And especially with James Gunn, if that's his favourite character. But one of the most interesting things to me was that there was no mention of, like, Peacemaker Season 2. Like, the fact that
they're in Waller.
Yeah, they're in. I know, but I was expecting the fact that his wife is in that show. I was expecting that to be a part of this, but then I maybe wants to avoid that whole thing of so you sack Henry Cavill, but you keep your wife. Maybe he's want to avoid that argument. I don't know, but
the way he said some of the Peacemaker teams, I don't know if it's going to be actually Peacemaker, but he might just show up for an episode. That's my impression. It was more the supporting characters in Peacemaker.
I just think surely Peacemaker was one of the few things from the DC universe prior which worked. So why do away with that? Do you know what I mean? Why not use that? Why not capitalize on that? Like, I was fully expecting to see Peacemaker in this lineup somewhere.
It's still kind of early days, and I think as someone was saying, it's not like it's a lot, but it's not really that as ambitious as they're not just going fucking mental straight away. It's like 2 films, 2 films and 2 shows a year.
This isn't the full slate. Although I do wonder though, like, if he's saying 2025 for Superman Legacy, when are we looking at for Swamp Thing? Like, is this like 2030, 20? Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
It seems to be hitting the ground on them fairly. It seems to have, like,
in the video he said the 8 to 10 year plan, but then he said that this isn't the full of Chapter 1. So is the 8 to 10 years the full of Chapter 1, or is this what he's announced, the 8 to 10 years, and then there's more?
No. It's like 6 chapters. They're just giving us whatever for now, and not to be.
They'll just build the foundation for it.
Yeah, it's not going to be. This phase isn't going to be. I think the entire thing will probably be about. They'll probably be aiming, like, they'd probably be fairly happy if they can aim for 12 years. Like, they'll probably have stuff in the background that will look to have to see how this goes. But even to get it to this point, they can probably see that unless they change stuff around, people start getting bored. Yeah. Like Marvel, like, a lot of people are mentioning their fatigue of it now. I think they're all wrong. But,
I'm feeling it.
But they can see us.
I'm
not. Look, plenty of people are feeling it. And you're wrong. Something ain't going to get good now. No, I don't. Again, I'm probably the least. Again, out of all Marvel films, I'm like, I don't fucking like half of them. I don't rewatch any of them. Every weekend now, like, it's only that my nephew finally said, "Oh, I'm actually using your Disney Plus." I'm like, "Fuck! I actually want to get rid of that because, like, I know pirates, and I don't need to be fucking paying money. It's a bit handier to working on my PlayStation. I just need to get wireless headphones and money." But
see, you go.
this is rambling there.
Oh,
Yeah,
on the Peacemaker thing.
Yeah.
Do you think because they've not continued it is because in the ending of Peacemaker you had Henry Cavill's Superman there.
But that's also
that's very fucking small. They didn't have Henry Cavill's Superman. They didn't outline him.
Oh no, they had
Flash and Aquaman were the only kind of prominent people, and
I think
they're still there. Like.
I do think that does create a problem, but I reckon what they'll say is like if Peacemaker comes back, maybe he's either aware of the reset, like maybe Peacemaker knows it's happened, or it doesn't know it happened, and we do, and they sort of, you said, make a joke out of it, like
he's the Deadpool of the
line. But like Aquaman and Flash are technically still part of if they're resetting stuff, and Aquaman's going to be there after the
listen. Ezra Miller, he's getting one movie as Flash, and that's it. There's no way they're going to continue.
The way James Gunn talked about that's the end of his career.
Although DC and Warner Bros are saying as a whole right now that Ezra Miller's getting another chance if they respond to the rehab and stuff. I think that in James Gunn's eyes, I think he's got his own Flash in the back of his mind. Do you know what I mean? Like idea for that.
Too much of a risk.
I think that's all.
Yeah,
coming later. But hey, yeah, so overall, just like, what was your takeaway? I know that Jerd's kind of hate that isn't a DC guy, and certainly wasn't a DC guy prior to this. Has this like made you any more enthused for DC?
I am all DC now.
No, but is there any of this
Marvel action figures into Batman's?
Is there any of this that you're like looking forward to, or any of it that you're like, oh, thank God they did something, or are you just indifferent?
I guess I wouldn't seem to be as adverse to the Creature Commandos thing that you are, because it seems like, as other people were saying, that's going to be as Guardians of the Galaxy. You can do whatever you want. I don't know. I guess the concept of a fucking
so because it sounds like Marvel, you're excited for it. All right, okay.
You're excited.
It's like Marvel.
Even my Midnight Suns, I'm like, whatever. I don't know. What else was there? Yeah, there's that kind of stuff. Like, it did feel like the Waller and blah blah blah. They were already announced, and they're too far ahead in them. They're just kind of put in there. Like, look, I should read. Like, I'm still at that DC Frontier book that my mate got me that I still haven't read because fuck DC. But I know that I should be reading I listened to like Kevin Smith talk to Grant Morrison. Did a really big. It was over a couple of episodes where they like just really fucking talked about stuff, and it was a lot of like, of course, Kevin Smith sucking Grant's penis because of. That's how Kevin Smith operates, but like, it sounded good to me. Like, it was like how he brought in a lot of Grant's penis sounded good.
Just that.
But the way they brought in like stuff from Batman's past in the 60s and 70s, it was fucking stupid. But they kind of gave it a home in a modern world or whatever. And that just seemed to be like, from what I heard about, like, Grant Morrison seems to be connected to most of the best fucking DC stuff going. So I'm like.
Listen, that's why I personally think the whole brand loyalty thing is bullshit. Like, Marvel, DC, or anyone else, like Dark Horse or whatever, I don't care. I pick the way I choose comics. I pick a writer I like, and regardless of who they're working with, I'll check it out. Like Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker has written great Marvel stuff, great DC stuff, and great independent stuff. And I don't think of any of that as like, oh, this is marvelous. I just think it is all stories by him that are well told. And I just think for me, that's just the best way to approach it. Grant Morrison's the same. Like, Grant Morrison's written things independent, and they've worked on stuff for both. And like, again, just everything's been solid.
It's just in the way I kind of rationalize it is, I like these specific characters. I'm going to try and at least get through all the good stories about them before I go to characters I just don't naturally gel with.
I'd rather read something that I know is a good story by a writer I like, as opposed to something that might be a subpar story because it's related to a certain character I like. I think.
I think it's still aim for the good ones though. As opposed to something that's, this is supposed to be an all right. Like, if I've heard something that's supposed to be an all right Spider-Man comic, I'm not going to be reading it. Like, so I still have plenty to watch Midland Spider-Man or read. I've plenty of Midland Spider-Man comics to read anyway. But
recent Spider-Man sounds pretty dodgy to me. But...
that finished actually. I can give a quick talk about that at the end. But no, it's like the Batman Superman sounds interesting. Look, Waller, I didn't think I'd like Peacemaker after the way they treated the character and the thing, but they incorporated everything that, like, they kind of brushed over a little bit, but they did have a scene or two to it. And I fucking love Peacemaker. I thought it was fantastic. For that opening credit scene alone, which I'm going to rewatch as soon as I finish this. And then what else was there? Batman, Superman. Yeah, just like a big part of me not liking DC's because they make shit films half the time, and it's just like their cinematic universe has been a fucking mess for a while. So this seems to be like they're announcing stuff, and they're actually going to like. I'd be very like maybe one of these, but for such a small slate and how much emphasis they're putting on it, and a lot of it was Gunn's confidence. Like I know he's probably done a bit of acting and stuff, but I thought he just delivered it well enough. And
I also think, what you said the thing about mentioning the word marvelous a few times, that was maybe on purpose.
Oh, Joe, yeah, I kind of did, but he felt like if you said it twice, and that speech is good. So he called Blue Beetle a marvelous character. He said something else marvelous. I know it's only a word, but it just felt unusual to me for something that's probably been planned out so much, considering how DC fans are. They used it.
Right.
I think there's other words.
I agree with you. This stuff's also been planned out by like a bunch of meetings and stuff and okayed before he's made that video. But what was weird about the video, I thought it felt really amateur. I thought it felt like, I had the feeling of like James Gunn just set up a camera and just sat and spoke to it for 6 minutes. Like it wasn't that well edited. It wasn't that like tight in terms of like he was reading this tight script. It felt a bit kind of like sporadic and not really like this graphic that I've got up on the screen right now to tell me what's what. Without that, I wouldn't have. If I watched the video just before recording, I'd have been like, "Oh shit, what did they?" Like, it didn't really show it and break it down very well in that video. I didn't feel, and this graphic's been made by someone else that's made it based on a video, and I just think that I don't know. I felt like they could have presented it a wee bit clearer. It felt a bit rambly and a bit sporadic to me.
Yeah, well, I'd say we'd probably have more by the end of the year, maybe, or in a year's time. We'll have more concrete stuff. Like
kind of a bit thrown together. I felt like it felt a bit kind of thrown together. Even though I know it's not, but I don't know. That's how it came across.
I still think he was kind of going along the lines of like, we're only telling you a little bit now. That's it. Like just fucking.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things.
Here's a rough idea.
Yeah.
Let's think of that. We're still fucking making them, like, so yeah. I did not the show either, like, but that's why again, the biggest thing that stood out for me is, and I think is certainly lacking in Marvel stuff, even though Marvel kind of does it. But not even that, just using, like, I know again they probably would be using set photos and shit if they had it, but I don't think I've ever saw Marvel use an image from a comic to promote something that they've announced.
Yeah,
it might have used a name, but the name doesn't mean fucking shit in any of them, really, like.
Chris, you being the resident DC guy, what did you make of all this? Are you buzzing, or are you like,
I am excited for it. Like, I'm excited because it's an actual foundation rather than diving into Justice League right away. But they're actually building up these characters.
Yeah.
They've already been in the world. Like Amanda Waller, Batman's already 35. He'll know who Amanda Waller is. There might be cross sections.
Sure.
The Superman thing, they're already built a connection with Superman. I hope. Like, all the connections are already built. They're not just meeting them for the first time. I hope that's the way I'm looking at it. And you're basically starting off running with, and just make fucking good stories. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully, there's nothing. Like, I think it might be like the way they've done it with the Avengers films. They'll probably get like this 6 films or 8 films out, and then they might do another 10 years, and at the end of that 10 years, there's a Thanos.
Yeah.
Or something.
Darkseid, I guess, yeah.
I don't want Darkseid. No, I don't want
Doomsday.
I don't want him in at the moment. Doomsday.
No, what's the guy? What's the Superman guy that's got the big brain and he's like an alien? Brainiac. They could do him.
That would because that's on the actual fighter game, the Injustice game, and that was a good. So they could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally buzzing for it. I mean, yeah. I really think the way James Gunn was presenting this was he was trying to really get feedback from like, what do you think?
Like, I don't know what it is. I don't like that. I would rather a creator come in confidently and say, this is what we're doing. Even if it's shit, at least have the balls to have a go instead of being like, oh, is this okay? Do you like this? Like, I don't want that for my creators. Is that just me? I don't know. And that's, although I know the trunk thing was a joke, that's kind of what I felt about that as well. I was like, why are you asking people? Like, people on Twitter are idiots. Like, why would you value their opinion? You're in charge. You're getting paid a fortune and you should know what you're doing. I don't know. I just find that a bit
But he
I'm
can
like,
still.
why is he in charge if he can't even make that decision? Like, I know.
But again, you're saying that it's a joke, but you're still treating it like it's not.
I feel like I know it's a joke, but I feel
it doesn't work.
I feel like it infers that it puts the thought in my head that even though this poll might be a joke, is this how he does stuff behind the scenes? Does he like put it to a big group of people that he knows? Does he text Edgar Wright like, "Oh, I think about doing this with you"? Like, I'm like, nah, I don't know. I
don't know.
I mean, you could like that. He's got a lot of plates spinning. Like, he'll probably need to trust like a lot more.
Well, he just fucking it's Twitter. Like, it doesn't really mean like he just be like, what's the general vibe if I put this question up on people think, and then maybe you'll think about it.
I just think the optics of it are a bit weird, but
I think like some things like that. There's no harm giving the fans a like what's the fucking? Oh no, he has to pick something that the fans don't want. Like I think that you can say that in a joking way and haven't thought about that, but like if it's a fucking huge universe and there's so many little ins and outs and little questions that can be asked or little vibes here and there that can be.
I feel like it feeds into the whole stereotype of comic book fans being like oversensitive and over fanatic. Do you know what I mean? By being like, oh, I don't want to upset these guys because I know like how much they're, so I better make sure it's all right. Like, I don't know.
I totally get where you're coming from. I remember watching an interview with George Lucas, and he knew exactly what it was. He was like, "No, you go that way because that's the way the Jedi."
Again, people hate at the time. At least people hated the prequels, but they were the movies that Lucas wanted to make, and I respect him for that. Even though people hated him, it was what he wanted to make, so that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Do you think it's because it's no James Gunn's characters? Like he never created them. Like I think it's like that because George Lucas did. He had a vision.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it's like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I think he like literally said he wasn't going to.
Again,
I don't know. I fucking something like I don't give a fuck about trunks or no trunks. So like, yeah, let all these fucking dickheads say what they prefer, and I'll think about it. Like
my main takeaway, like there's a few of these projects I'm excited for. The idea of an Authority movie sounds cool. The idea of a Swamp Thing movie, if they do it right, sounds cool. The Lanterns TV show sounds interesting just because of what the way that he sold it in that video. But I just, again, overall, I personally am just more excited for the Elseworlds stuff than I am from anything that was announced here. And that
Joker.
That shouldn't be right.
Is it because you've seen it though? Is it because you've seen the like you've seen Joker? And but I mean, I'm
so
for them
in my mind, I'm thinking like if I'm comparing Todd Phillips' Joker, Matt Reeves' Batman, and the idea of this other Superman movie, which again we've not seen yet. But if I'm comparing, let's just take Todd Phillips' Joker in the Batman movie. If I'm comparing that to Guardians and Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad, God, I'd much rather see a sequel to Todd Phillips' Joker and Batman and Matt Reeves' Batman than I would to James Gunn's Suicide Squad or another Guardians movie. Like 100%. I would so much more interested in seeing.
And you put it that way.
That just more suits your affection and hatred for James Gunn.
Maybe. Yeah,
no, I have to admit,
like Joker. I can't say. I'm still fucking annoyed they made the first one. Like, never mind.
Oh, I love Joker. What's wrong with? Oh, that was amazing.
Wouldn't you know? Huh? I hate you as a person for that choice.
I like Joker a lot, but it was just a poor man's taxi driver. But it was okay. It was Joaquin Phoenix was solid, and I loved his performance, and I thought he was great.
He's a great actor. He's probably given my best performance to screen that I've ever. Well, not mine, but he can give it to me. The Master is one of my favorite performances of all time. I just thought that film was really shite.
The
Master. So that's why I'm the Joker. Is this kind of a cliche idea from the 80s? Yes, let's do it. But I'm going to be skinny and naked.
My issue is more with Todd Phillips than it is with anything else with that movie. I think Todd Phillips is a bit of a weird guy, and the idea of just loosely remaking a Scorsese movie seems pretty lazy to me. So that's my issues with Joker as opposed to anything else. But yeah,
be interested to see what the next one is like because he's not really got a script unless he makes.
Well, that's the
Taxi
thing.
Driver
I
3.
do think, speaking of that movie specifically, I would much rather see that original idea of two different Jokers, like when Willem Dafoe said the thing about the two Jokers, and especially if the other one's played by Dafoe. I'd much rather see that than a Harley Quinn being introduced. But do you know what? Harley Quinn, in my opinion, has not really had a great run on screen. Like, I like Margot Robbie. I don't think she's a great Harley Quinn. I'm curious to see what they do with that character in this universe, but we'll see.
I like Harley Quinn is like in the comics and stuff. Like she is ditzy, but she's actually smart.
Well, that's the thing.
So
I feel like we've never
persona
seen like, after going with the tone of the first movie, Harley Quinn is going to be an extremely dark character in this movie, and we've never really seen that. So that's exciting to me.
No,
but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I never saw Birds of Prey, but a random clip of it just came up on my
Jesus.
YouTube.
Well, I never watched it because it just
some guys coming to attack her.
Garbage.
Some guys coming to attack her because he's like, why? And then there's the flashback of like Joker tattooing in his face. Like, well, it wasn't me. But like, does Joker show up in those flashbacks a lot, or like the character of Joker show up in that film a bit?
I think they filmed. I think they filmed a flashback using a body double. I'm pretty sure for a certain part. Jared Leto wasn't there, but yeah,
I think there was something about. I think I saw something like a clip of him inside a house with the windows, or kind of you can't see him properly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of as well.
This other one, he's holding down a guy tattooing him.
Right.
But you only see kind of like the back profile of his head.
Yeah. Garbage. Jesus. Jared Leto does just. For somebody I hate more than James Gunn.
Why do you keep putting them in stuff?
What?
Do his films do well in like fucking China or something?
No, because he's a cult leader.
That's why he's a cult leader.
They're scared of him. I don't know.
But he always seems to like. They put him in these big things. I'm like, why? Why do you keep pushing him? It's he's not like.
Do you know something? Do you want to know the most annoying
thing? He's not
thing?
fucking Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. Do
you want to know the most annoying thing though? That man is capable of a good performance because I've seen it. Do you know what I mean? Fight Club, Dallas Buyers Club. He is good when he wants to be, and sometimes he's just.
But drama, I completely understand. He's done the fucking work. He's a competent drama actor.
Requiem for a Dream.
He put him in like fucking franchise blockbuster.
Yeah.
He's not that much crack.
Not
everybody has to be that much crack or charismatic. Like not every actor has to be.
They do nowadays in Hollywood, apparently. So yeah. Anyway, with all that said, God, we're nearly at 3 hours. That was our take on the whole James Gunn slate. Let us know in the comments. Are you excited? Do you have any casting ideas for who you want to see as Batman or Superman or anyone else? What project specifically are you most excited for? And like me, are you more excited for the Elseworld stuff, or are you buying up for James Gunn's plans? Let us know in the comments. But
you can tell by the enthusiasm of Dan, he hates James Gunn with a passion.
By that delivery. I do, right? But I also want to be proven wrong. I want to be proven wrong. Like I do. I want to come out to this podcast and say, I take it all back. He was right. This is great. That is what I want, but I just don't see it. But I hope I'm wrong.
What I predict is any of these films we're going to have to listen to you talk about how much you hate James Gunn for like 20 minutes.
So that's
anytime we review them, or they come up. That's just like, we're going to, this podcast is just going to be good, like, there's the normal podcast, and then there's the whole other event of this running thread of Dan and his mission to kill James.
That's not exactly a crazy prediction, is it? Right. We've been Pop Shock, we've been Chris, Jerd and Dan. Why did I say it like that? I never say it like that.
I know.
But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Leave us a like on Facebook, give us a subscribe on YouTube, and you can find us on.
We have a link tree now.
We have a link tree now, which I will put below if Jerd says me a link to all our shit. Yeah. But we're on everything: Instagram, Twitter. I don't know if we're on TikTok yet.
Give us a rating. Spotify.
Give us a rating. Yeah. And give us a like.
Listen on YouTube, maybe try one episode on Spotify because then you can rate it.
But and we'll be back next week to talk about.
Yeah,
I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we'll talk about something.
Oh, something will happen.
Some bollocks, some nonsense.
Something will get dropped. James Gunn will reorder the thing.
Another DCU Slate.
I'll probably still be playing Spider-Man 2. Oh no, Ant-Man isn't out till like the weekend after.
Yeah.
So I might miss
the weekend after Valentine's. I think it's out. Yeah,
17th. I think is it's release here.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, all the best. Take care until then. We'll see you then, and Danny's got a brand new SmackDown.